Hey everybody, how are you doing? We are on Rage and Love. We're doing it a little bit different today. Joey is running late at work, but we have Dave from Captive Desk joining us today for this fun. How are you doing?
Hello, everybody. Hi, AJ. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
It's cool. It's gonna be fun. We have some stuff prepared. While we wait for Joe, um, let me ask you. Well, I'm pretty sure that everybody that's going to be watching probably knows you better than me. But where can people find you anyway?
My main channel is Captive Desk, and I also have a secondary channel that's the Grassman Chronicles, where I put all just my cryptid stories, just for that stuff. But mostly though, you find me at the Captive Desk,
Nice,
and I
nice.
and I cover all kind of otherworldly things, including religions.
Otherworldly things. I like that description. Because it's more than just religion out there.
Yep.
I think today we have. I always watch your show. You review videos and articles and all kinds of stuff. And I've always enjoyed like your commentary because you know the Bible a whole lot better than I do. Uh, How
I'm
many
just
times have you read
it's
it?
just years of hearing it. That's it. I'm not a Bible scholar or anything like that, but yeah, so many years of talking about it, and you're looking stuff up in the Bible all the time, and you reread it without even knowing it. I do have my Bible though. I got my Bible when I went to church. It's got my name in it and everything, uh, and it's the real version. It's the KJV.
Oh yeah, I have two of those that were gifted. Because I originally grew up atheist, so we did have Bibles at home. I remember my mom had like the really really thick big, I don't know, it was probably like this big, I swear. It seems a lot bigger than the Bibles I see here in the US. I don't know if it's like if they're like a condensed version or something. Maybe it was bigger print, I'm not really sure, but it was huge. Or maybe that's just the way my brain remembers it, as a kid. Like, yeah, I guess I could have been like kind of small and myself, and it felt like a really
Well,
big
they
book.
they come in all different styles. Yeah, thick, thin, large, tiny. They got those little keychain Bibles. You need a magnifying glass to read.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I have the okay. I don't know if you can see like right there. That's one of those little tiny pocket ones
yeah.
in the back. I
Oh
got
yeah,
it.
who was it? Somebody would pass out those little pocket versions. The JWs or something.
Yeah.
They used to pass out those little pocket ones. I had one of those. I don't know if I still have it. I'll have to go looking. But it's just I think it's just the New Testament.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has like keywords on it. Like
Mm.
say, they're like inspirational keywords, so, like stuff about addiction, or like when you're feeling sad, or when you're going through a struggle or illness. Like it has all these keywords for the index, and then you go to that page, and it gives you like a specific verse or quote from it. Yes, it's definitely not the full book. It's just like the sanitized version. But yeah, you have a good point that there's so many different versions, and just English translations. I recently heard that there's like over 400
Well,
in
we it,
English.
it's you mentioned doing the reviews. I started doing the reviews with Mike from Answers in Atheism because he used to do Saturday Night with the Atheists, and before that, we found out there was another show that was similar on Saturday night. So this is like the third generation.
Hmm.
And I told Mike, I just basically, hey, let me borrow it, and I'll do the stuff. You can just come in, easy gig. So that's what we've been doing. And yeah, with the running joke is the KJV is real version from God, because a lot of these apologists, especially in the United States here, seem to think that the KJ version is directly from God in English just for us.
Okay, I had not actually heard that yet. Wow. Okay, that's a new one. Because I have heard, I have some family or friends that are Catholics or Christians, and yeah, same thing. Whenever they've asked, what version I was reading when we were discussing heathen stuff, and if I say there was a different one, they would probably like throw a fit. Uh, and told me that
I
that's not the right one. That KJV is the right one.
I made a silly little video with metal music in it that has one of our folks. His name is Brad, and we covered him, and he was calling me desktop idiot and stuff. And so I mixed it up into a little video, and had a little fun with it. And yeah, he's got KJV, what do you call it? Wall decorations or whatever, the things that's right on his wall behind him is KJV. Yeah. So it, and we've covered several of them now that are KJV only. Other ones, the one guy had the KJV on one table and the other versions of the Bible on another table. And he basically compared it to, well, if you take the book from this table, you're saved or going to heaven or whatever. If you pick any of these other versions, you're basically going to hell.
It's wow. It's really mind blowing because it literally is the same book. It's just like different words,
Pretty
like how
much.
we, you know, in the north they have some different words that they use. In the south we have, I don't know, sayings and uh, specific ways of pronouncing words. And it's like the same with the Bible. Like the content is gonna be ultimately the same thing. Like why do you make such a big deal about whether it's that version or this version? I suppose because each version also tells a different story in some
But
ways, like depending on the
it's
translation.
it's so personal, AJ. People get personal spiritual things from reading it, right? So ultimately, they're going to infight, because just in reading it, just like any book, you're going to get different things, like when book clubs meet, and they discuss, what did you get out of this book, and you'll get different perspectives, reading the same book, right? And it's the same thing. So yeah, ultimately they're going to infight, and you're not reading this verse right, and yeah, it's inevitable because it's too hard when you try to pigeonhole people on a spiritual matter. You know what I mean? Because people are, if you're on that journey to find God or whatever, it's always an individual journey, right? And if you're trying to, you have to do it this way or that way, I don't think it works. I'm more like, I more agree with Eastern philosophies that are, many paths, right? There's many paths to spiritual journeys. So yeah, I think they do themselves a lot of harm when they do that, because then you see that so many splinters of denominations and everything break off. Churches across from the street from each other, don't agree. Oh, that church over there are heretics, and I think it does them a lot of harm.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, that's how they ended up with 45,000 Christian
Exactly.
denominations in the world, and I'm sure that's not going to be the end of it. Like we will see more and more denominations being added. Um, yeah, like last night on your live show, I was in the chat and there was this person that was uh, telling you to debate them and let them into the stream and all
I
that. Nicholas, I think it
yeah
was,
yeah. I
and
just
it's interesting because he kept making the assertion that he knew that God was real and that he was an atheist before and that then he found God. Um, but he refused. Uh, Everybody in the chat kept asking him, which God? Like, what religion do you believe in? And I think it took us like a good hour for him to finally answer the question. And he was like, well, I'm a Catholic and Catholicism is the right one. I was like, all right, there you go. Was that so
But
hard to say? Because it's like,
you
yeah,
know, he dropped me a super chat like he wanted to buy his way in or something. I'm like, look, I appreciate it, but I don't do debates. I invited him. I gave him an email and everything. I said, hey, if you want to set something up, I'm happy to talk to anybody. People that come on my channel know I'm happy to talk with anybody if it's civil, right? You want to talk about Bigfoot? We'll talk about Bigfoot, right? It doesn't really matter, okay? I'll talk about it. But when they come in and they seem to have an attitude, of, oh, I'm going to wreck you and, I'm just going to destroy you and all this stuff. And I really don't care, right? I just don't care.
yeah, that's why I don't do debates either. Like I enjoy sometimes a little spiciness in the chat, but I'm not gonna go and like platform somebody that just wants to come in for a fight because
Yeah,
they're just trying to convince you. That's it.
and they're good at it, and they know what to do to corner you and trip you up and stuff and just make you look bad, right? And it's like, look, fine, I'll save you the trouble, call me a dum dum, right? But that's besides the point of you still haven't convinced me that your belief is true, right? So in the end, it doesn't matter, and I think it's a loss for them because they're supposed to be spreading the word and that kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, I don't get why they have an attitude and stuff. Supposed to be spreading the good news, and all this, and yeah, it's just I want to wreck you and atheists or dum dums and all this stuff, and okay, fine, right? You win, right? I'm still not going to church with you, right?
Yeah, and that seems to be like the way they go, like they will start trying to convince you first and put the burden of proof on you and the
Mm-hmm.
atheist. They're like, well, prove that my God is not real. I'm like, no, you're the one that came with the assertion that your God is real. So, yeah.
And I've been with from the Christians, and I've been on several Muslim apologist channels, and it always descends into the same thing of, where did you come from? And I'll say, well, I came from my parents, and birds
I
and the
hope.
bees. Did you, well, then, where did people come from? Where did the planet come from? Where did matter come from? Where did the universe come from? And all this. And it's like, well, I don't know all that stuff. I don't have to. It has nothing to do with, you haven't convinced me of your belief, right? So, and again, it's just to trip you up. It's like, oh, what was the one that Hamza tried to trip me up on, what the molecular formula for carbon or something was? And I said, man, uh, high school chemistry was 40 years ago for me. Okay. I don't have a clue what it is. I said, I can look it up, right? Oh, you have to look it up. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't have these
We
things in
don't
my head, right?
we don't all know all the things. That's
Yeah. But
impossible.
so afterwards, sure enough, I looked it up and I put it in the chat, or down in the comments, I mean, and I said, here you go. Here's the molecular formula for whatever. I looked it up. It took me, just a couple seconds, but it's just one of those things of, yeah, if it had to be some, like we were carbon based or something, so it got down to carbon or something. And yeah, they just keep going until, oh, you don't know the molecular formula, and it's like, no, right? And
What, for God, I guess.
I wouldn't either, though. Most of the years that I worked, I was a technician, and I use reference books and stuff. I don't memorize, what all the settings are and all that kind of stuff. That's what reference books are for, And now you have the internet. Yeah, you just look it up. You say, okay, this is the setting. This is whatever you need to know, and there you go. So I've never been one to keep all that in my head because there's no point. I'm probably never going to use that information again. So that's what they
Yeah.
have reference books for.
Interesting. Yeah, Mike says that he's gonna take on the debate bro from last night.
Yeah, and we
That's
set him up,
bad.
right? Because I felt bad because, well, a little bit, but because he's dropping the super chats, like,
Yeah.
and I
I
said,
mean,
so Mike stepped up and he said, look, why don't you come over and talk? So we set him up, right? We accommodated. So, I'm happy to accommodate, but it was just, it's kind of rude. Like if somebody pops in right now and, hey, debate me, AJ, debate me. And AJ's like, well, me and Dave got a show set up here, how about we do it another time? No, debate me right now. Come on. What are you checking? Come on.
oh
And,
yeah, the chicken things he kept
yeah.
posting. That
And
was
so
so annoying.
I was trying to be polite, but it's like, I got a show going here. And my ticker right at the bottom said, you can ask an atheist a question, tag me in the chat, right? I didn't say debate me, bro. I said, if you have a question for an atheist, I'll stop what I'm doing and answer it. And we've done it numerous times, but that it's not an open invite to start a debate in the middle of my show.
Well, like I guess he probably doesn't have a channel and doesn't understand what goes behind planning a whole show to make sure that you're not just sitting there like doing nothing, And it's like for somebody to just come in and demand that, if you don't debate me right this second, then you're a chicken and you don't have the answers. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
And I told him I didn't care, right? I said, look, I don't do debates. That's not my thing. I know I'm not good at it. You know what I mean? I just know. I'm
the same.
Well, guys, I envy guys like Grayson. You know who Grayson is?
Oh, he's great.
He's got such a great recall. You know what I mean? He can pull that stuff out real quick. You can't get him in a gotcha because he's like, if you mention somebody's name, he's like, oh yeah, I know who that professor is.
And it's out here.
Yeah, his theory is such and such and such. And I just read his paper last week and he's got it just like that, I'm not like that. When I do videos, I make a script. I'm for my next Grassman. I almost got my next one ready, and I'm proofreading the script because I read through a script. I'm not going to get up there and try to, I don't do it off the cuff well.
Right, exactly. Like I have a very similar system. Obviously, the pre-recorded videos, everybody uses scripts for those.
Yeah.
But for my live videos, I usually have like Derek is saying in the chat, like I need notes or so yeah, like I have a document where I put my notes, I put my links for what we're gonna show. I was trying to add like a stream playlist, but it wouldn't let me add them. So I was like, all right, I just link them in order of which one I want to do first and last. Any comments that I had while I was watching the videos that maybe I'll forget later. So I'm just gonna type them up real quick.
Exactly.
And then I'll go away, because my mind is like full of so many things. It's kind of like very disorganized. So when I put it out on paper, it goes a lot smoother and the show flows a lot better. Like we keep the topics relevant to whatever we were talking about before. And so I don't know. It works better for me that way. So yeah, look, like you're not gonna like work on all of that, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, "Well, bring me on to your show right now. Give me the link, or else." Like,
right, and it was a little rude. Like I said, I was trying to be nice. Repeatedly I stopped and I was like, because I kept seeing the comments.
Yeah, I think everybody's frustrated.
Yeah. We're happy to accommodate, really. I've had a lot of people on just to talk on my channel. That's one of the things I do. I see, look at the trees out there. Look at the trees came on one day and we talked about what else, but look at the trees because, it's a popular argument the apologists use. And I just happen to know, look at the trees. So, I mean, you got to do that interview, right? Trees and I are cool, but I'm sure there's things Trees and I would disagree about, if we wanted to get into a debate about something. But I don't want to do that, we just hang out and talk. That's what I like to do. If I want to pick something apart, I'll make a video. When I have the time to look stuff up, look up the papers, look up their citations, because that's another thing they'll do. They'll throw stuff at you, and in real time, you can't look that up. You can't look those papers up, and all that stuff. And yeah, they're It's just going to be a gotcha, right? So,
That's what they're looking for, really. They're just looking for that moment to be like, "Oh, I own this atheist, and
right.
I prove them wrong, and I prove my God," and just like with the usually with the book, like
But
or
Jim
or the
Bob told me,
feelings.
Jim Bob told me I needed a helmet, so I made myself a helmet in AI. Right? I just go with it and laugh, and it's like, whatever. You just want to insult me? Okay, you did it. Good for you.
So I've seen some of the videos by Jim Bob and uh,
He's a clown.
someone that so many people keep saying they debated him once and that was it. Like they were not gonna do it again. They were just
See, that was my mistake, AJ. I went on there a second time.
oh
And I
okay.
ended up saying, F you, Jim Bob, and I left. And he said I rage quit. And I was like, I didn't rage quit. I just told you to F off. And I left because I was done.
There comes a point where the frustration gets too much because the arguments that they're bringing up are just so ridiculous that you just can't.
Well, it's hard to keep your composure, right? And then he
Mm.
called me a dope or something, right? And I was just like, and I try not to cuss. So it's one of the things people know on my channel. I try to keep it clean.
Uh,
And and I just let it slip. I just told him, F off, Jim Bob. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sit here for you to call me names, No.
yeah, like when the arguments no longer hold, they always go there. They always go to like the personal, insults and yeah.
Oh, they had a contest and they made funny pictures of me and everything over there. They really don't like me over there at all.
Uh,
But it doesn't bother me,
you said,
you know, uh, it doesn't bother me. They think it bothers me, but it doesn't bother me.
yeah, you gotta have thick skin to be in this type of
Well,
platforms,
consider the
sometimes.
source. There
Yeah.
there are people that can talk down to me, right? I will give it. There are some folks out there that are super brilliant people that could make me look really, you know, not smart at all, right? In comparison, right? Uh, Jim Bob ain't it. Not
I
even
think no.
close.
Oh goodness. Okay, so
He just
somebody
he just
said that
uses word tricks. That's all. He just using word tricks.
word tricks, yeah, that
That's
term.
all it is.
Um so YouTube user says that Tita there was about the book of horror stories. Yes, it is. We are passing time a little bit, waiting for Joe. Here's the thing. Joe, my husband, he was raised religious, but he didn't really like going to church, so he would usually stay home with his grandma and while his family went to church. And he wasn't like super exposed to it. Like his family wasn't very, strict on that sense. So he never read the Bible at all. I got into religion when I married him because even though his family wasn't extremely religious, I could tell that they were. And that, they did go to church. And, when I got pregnant and my baby was going to have some heart issues, they were very uh, open about like their belief and being like, hey, come, we'll pray for you. Like the church will pray over you and God will heal your baby. And I'm not gonna lie, I was raised atheist without belief, but my mom didn't really put a whole lot of emphasis on saying, religion is harmful or uh, it was like all religions were the same. They were all mythical, and we did have different religious books at home, just as educational material. Um, so I think that with having come to the U.S. very young and into a house where the people that we stayed with before I met my husband were, I think they were evangelists. So they were like very, very religious. And that was like my first exposure really to religion. and we would go to church with them and stuff. So when I met my husband and his family was religious, I could tell that that mattered to them, and I didn't want to not fit in. And along with the vulnerability of the potential of my baby dying at birth and all of that, I was like very in a place of like confusion and be like, maybe this is it. So I did get into religion, and I would say I did not read the full Bible at that time because what happens when you go to church is like they will give you like a specific verse for that day or like a chapter to read or something like that, and it's a very big emphasis on the New Testament, and the Old Testament is useless and we no longer need that covenant and all of that. So anyways, I did read some of the New Testament, but I read more of the Bible after I became an atheist than before. After I became an atheist the second time, I guess you could say. So Joe hasn't read it, and he doesn't. I would say he probably remembers the stories more as the kids' stories than as the full stories. So that's why I wanted Joe to be here for that part. Hopefully, he's gonna make it soon. Uh, so we can see whether he remembers them the way that they are on the kids' videos, kind of washed out, sugar coated,
Yeah, they are.
sanitized stories, and then we'll get into like what they really are like, because that
Yeah,
should be very interesting.
I probably went through the different phases because going to Sunday school and everything, it was probably a little more sanitized, but we still went to sermons because you would either go to the sermon before or after Sunday school. And then it was, age appropriate. They divided you up in groups, right? So then you kind of went junior high and high school group kids. And then it was actually a Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
So, we did all that. And then I went through confirmation, which was almost all Bible study. And then after that, it was more when I would read the Bible. And then, like I said, then all these years of talking about it, you reference it so many times, you've reread it a couple times in pieces, just going back and, reading a couple pages of it here and there.
Yeah, and I would say that the majority of the people that I have asked so far who are still religious today, they have not read the full book, or at least have not read the Old Testament. Um, I know someone, and when I asked him, why don't you go ahead, and we were having, lots of conversations about religion and the Bible itself. And I was like, why don't you go ahead and read the Old Testament, so that we can actually discuss the parts that I find quite problematic. And he was like, no, 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 no. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reread the New Testament first. This was like over a year ago. I'm still waiting for him to finish to read the Old Testament.
The one that gets me is when I bring up something and they say, where does it say that in the Bible? And I just look at them like, don't you know where it says that in the Bible? Okay.
So
And I can be snarky too, I can pull out things that, if a woman is saying something to me, I can say, shh. don't usurp your authority over a man, right?
yeah,
Yeah, you can pull all those verses out to your advantage too when you know some of them,
that's
because there's so many contradictory ones. Anybody that pulls one out and says one thing, you can fire right back.
yeah. I was thinking about that earlier. Like how specific beliefs uh, that people hold, they will try to hold on to them so hard that they will find Bible verses to match whatever that is. Like one example was like homosexuality. Like there isn't a whole lot about it in the Bible. There is that one verse, like men should lay with women. I'm sorry, men should men lay with other men the way they lay with women. And I mean, one could interpret that in so many different ways. But then you think about, well, why are they not using that verse where which was it David and Jonathan, I think, when Jonathan dies and David
Mm.
is like, well, that he loved him more than any woman. And that makes you think, well, that they probably had a physical relationship in, and
There's
it's
another
right
one
there in
too,
the
isn't it?
Bible.
Samuel or something. There's another one that has a reference like that too.
Or what? Yeah, the one where the young man comes out. Oh, I don't know if it's completely naked or mostly naked from Jesus's quarters,
Yeah.
bedding area. I'm like, okay, even Jesus got down like that. So, uh,
And some of those verses, like you say, they've got so many interpretations. I heard that the majority of them are talking about actually assaulting someone, especially
could be.
children. That's what those references are, and it's like, well, if you take it that way, I got no problem with it. I mean, because there was a problem with that. What's it called, pederasty or whatever, with the Greeks and all that stuff, and grooming the young men and how to do things and all that.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So,
so they might have said, that's probably not what you should be doing, right?
yeah,
Maybe not, maybe not.
probably not. But yeah, I mean, like they really use each verse however they want to fit like their personal interpretation or whatever they want you to think. So, we were talking about like before the show, we were talking about like the different versions of the Bible, and what we don't talk about a lot is how many versions there are for kids. I have one here that was given to us, when my kid before my it was actually for my baby shower that this one was given to me. So it's like a Bible stories and songs, and it's pretty small. They're like really short stories. Like each story is about two. Like there's a drawing on one page, and then like the story on the other page, and it lets you know what Bible verse is inspired by, like Genesis, creation. Then there's Adam and Eve. I guess the first one's how he creates the world. Temptation for Adam and Eve. Um, so I was comparing these. It seemed like it's more like focus on children of like I would say maybe like 6 or 7 years old. It doesn't seem like something an older kid would read. But then, sorry about that. My it's my blood sugar letting me know that it's high. Okay, I'm just close it up. Uh, but then there's another one that we received that's big, a lot bigger and thicker, but it's an action Bible, and the whole book is in this style of like comic books, and I would say it doesn't. I didn't really see an age on it, but I would say maybe it's like aimed at pre-teenage years to like early teenage years. That's probably like the age range that will read that kind of book, especially as far as the Bible goes. Um, and while researching for the show, I found so many channels aimed at kids that I was like, wow. Okay, I'm gonna show you real quick the on the screen. Let me pull up because I was surprised how many there are, and some of these have like millions of subscribers. They're not like small channels. Share screen. Okay, found it. All right. So this one has okay. This one has 97,000 subscribers, but only 65 videos. That's a lot of subscribers for that little. And it has like all kinds of stories. If you go to the videos, they have like the kings. I guess they're doing the kings sections now, talking to Samuel, Ruth's story. Um, and then I saw some other ones that were like aimed at much younger kids. Like, if I can put it on there. Okay, there we go. Okay, this one has 1 million subscribers. That's crazy.
I've seen that one.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if this one has like copyright. I don't think so because it looks like AI created stories. Um, and they even have it in Spanish too, like Easter stories for kids. What happened before his death? The Last Supper in Spanish. I've always self control. That's interesting. So I was surprised that this is such a big um, platform, I guess you could say, for
Well, that
kids.
that's biblical, AJ. You know, train them up when they're young, right? Um,
Yeah,
so they won't depart or something like that. Is how the verse goes. So, and churches have a um, ideal that they use that's called 4 to 14. They know that that 10-year range is when you have to put things into people like belief in God, like they did with me, and then you already have it in your head, you know.
yeah. Okay, so our church says that sometimes they buy subscribers if the ratio seems off. That makes I had heard about that recently, and I was like, yeah, okay.
Or some of the big Christian channels will just, pass it around or something, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
people will subscribe, but they don't actually, come back or anything.
that's true. Yeah, but yeah, it does make you think that actually the amount of adult Christians that we have, it does make sense that they have such a big number of followers for kids videos because yeah, they just continue to try to get kids indoctrinated into this religion so that they become adult Christians one day. Because if
Most
you don't,
most of the homeschooling is religious based.
yeah, I was having a conversation recently with Brentley from Punk Apostate because he was homeschooled in a very very controlling, highly cultish religious setting, and it's very unfortunate. I homeschooled, but we go the opposite way. No Bible. Well, actually, we do sometimes read Bible stories, but with the purpose of breaking them up and like using reason to be like, hey, why this is not right or why this is, uh, but we do the actual stories.
A
What
friend of
I
mine did it too, and I mean it was decent material and everything, but the things where you get together, with
oh yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
group things, she said it was almost all Christians,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
and
As
not
in
just Christians, but I mean Christians. Emphasis
evangelist type,
Christians.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was looking earlier at the stories for from this little the one for the younger kids, and this is how they get them. Okay, like it's toward the end of the book, but there's one story, and it's called "The Bible is True," and it says it comes from Timothy. It says Paul wrote a letter to his friend Timothy. In it, he said that all the verses in the Bible are true. God gives us the Bible to teach us how to live a good life. It tells us that Jesus is God's Son and teaches us how to treat other people. It shows us the way to heaven. Yes, the Bible It's a very special book. It's God's word. Then it says, and God's word is true. I will read my Bible and know that it is true. And this is how they teach, like, this circular argument. Okay, this is when people get that
I,
circular argument. Like, the Bible is true because God's word is true, because Paul said it, because Timothy told him, and God told Timothy, and the book is true. And that's it.
and
But then,
the all three Abrahamics pretty much share that
yeah,
our book says it's true and it's from God. So, and yeah, they pretend to kind of get along, but deep down, they again, it's a deep division. They can't all three be right.
yeah. I've asked that same question. I'm pretty sure all of us atheists have asked that to a Christian that we know, and yeah, they can never tell you how that works.
Well, you
Uh,
mentioned Revelation earlier. John's
yeah,
Revelation is, a big battle. I mean, when you see these epic battles of good and evil in the big blockbuster movies, right? That's what you're in for. And according to the different religions, some of them are going to be on opposite sides, right? So it's not all the religions are going to join together against evil. There's going to be all the fighting of the different religions because, like Highlander, there can only be one in the end.
that's true. Yeah. I think, is it? Yeah, I don't want to say the wrong denomination, but I know that there are some denominations that claim that revelation already happened.
Mm-hmm.
Others say that it's the future. Others, it's uh, others don't even believe in it, even though it's in the book. So it's really, it's a very confusing book. So you know what? Let's start with some of the stories. We'll get into the others if Joe makes it in the stream. But let's start with creation, right? Like, I would say this is the one that a lot of us would consider to be the least harmful, but I think that's up for debate. Well, not that kind of debate, but debatable statement. So, like, on this very childlike story, uh, it just goes something like, God made everything. Then he said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He called the light day and the dark night. That is what God did on the first day. On the second day, he made the sky. On day three, he made the mountains and oceans. Then he made the trees and flowers. On the fourth day, God made the sun, the moon, and the stars. And on day five, he filled the oceans and lakes with fish. He made the birds and the butterflies too. And on the sixth day, God made all the animals. God made everything good, but he wasn't finished yet. Um, okay, so then he creates, on day six of the creation, he made his first man. His name was Adam, and he created a beautiful garden named Eden, and it was perfect. I'm sorry, a perfect home with everything he needed, well, except the woman, I guess. God gave Adam work to do, but he was to take care of all that God made. But he was lonely. So God said, "It is not good for Adam to be alone. I will make him a helper." So he made the woman. So, and I say that she took care of the garden, right? And it sounds like a really cute story. And I'm not saying we need to tell kids everything, because obviously, yeah, keeping things age appropriate is a good thing. Like, you're not gonna tell them uh, some details that you're gonna talk to them later on about when they're teenagers, right? Okay,
Sure.
there's a difference. But those type of things are things that we educate them on, so that they are not um, naive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to teach them these type of stories, to me, even though it seems like a really what's the word, a harmless story. If you really break it down, this is why so many people doubt science. One of the main harms that I can think of this little story is people like Jim Bob and um, what's his name, the other one that we Ken Hovind. They are stuck on defending the creation story as it is written, that they completely refuse to believe what science says out there, right? Um,
They
and
have to have an enemy, right?
yeah,
And when you don't have marauding armies running all around the place, they need to make up an enemy. So they make up a boogeyman in science. That's basically what it is. And that the science is trying to take away their religion, when in reality a majority of religious people accept science and still follow their religions. It's this minority, and it seems especially to be prevalent in this country, the United States, where you have so many that'll hold to man living with dinosaurs. The universe is less than 10,000 years old. Not just the Earth, the universe is less than 10,000 years old. And they will just wave away anything they don't like, including most of these organizations work under a statement of faith.
yeah,
Canham and all the rest of them sign a paper. So when you're listening to their so-called scientists, they've signed a paper that says they will not contradict anything the organization says with
oh
any
wow,
facts of history or science.
wow,
The Bible is already right, and they are stating in it that they are going to work around and misrepresent the science so that it suits not just the Bible stories, but the organization's own interpretation of the story. And like with Answers in Genesis, that is Ken Ham's interpretation of the Bible. And speaking of homeschooling, he's a leader in homeschooling materials. The Yabba Dabba Doo guy. So, so that is where it dominoes, right?
mm-hmm.
Where if you have your belief, and you also tell kids learn science as well. Science, don't say it's bad or anything like that. There's no, I don't see the problem at all. I'm not in favor of religion. I think it has a lot of problems. And again, most people, even Islam at like 51, 52%, and this is including repressive countries with little education, right? You got to take that into account. They still accept science, just barely a majority.
Yeah,
So you're really setting yourself up as uneducated behind countries that are so repressive. It's even hard to get a science book that
yeah,
understands science better than you do and accept it better than you do, right? They are trying really, really, really hard.
yeah. So we have Joe finally joining us. There he is.
Sorry,
How
I'm
you doing?
fashionably late. My apologies.
You're good. You're good. We were
I've
just
I've been listening to
chatting.
y'all though. I was listening while I was driving home, so my apologies. But it's
Okay.
good.
Hello,
Hey,
Joe.
how's it going, Dave?
Going good. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
So we were reading the creation story, um, talking about how sometimes it teaches that scientists were wrong about creation, right? And so if they're wrong about the way that humans came to be, then what else are they wrong about? And that seems to be the idea, that a lot of very very strict religious people like evangelists and what we see the Christian nationalists hold on to, like this belief that as they would say, like the earth is very young, like a couple thousand years old, and that God created everybody with some magic dust and all that. And when you have people doubt things like that, then they are gonna doubt other things. Like they're gonna doubt medications. They're gonna doubt climate change science. They're gonna doubt.
Same crowd every
Yeah,
time.
right.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So even though one may think, yeah, like what is the harm in these stories? Let people believe in Adam and Eve. Let people believe in Noah's Ark. No, there is a line that we have to draw when to what we teach people, especially kids. Okay,
Yeah,
because
our young minds. Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah. So one thing I would say is that kids are just adults in training, because every experience that we have in our childhood, even the big ones and the small ones, will ultimately shape who we become as adults. So out of these religious indoctrinations that happen in childhood, create powerful ideas that these kids are gonna take on for their whole lives, right? Things like, I don't know, like humans are sinful, that they're weak, or that you have to have blind obedience to God. That questioning the Bible's dangerous. All of those type of things are pretty harmful for people to hold on to, and because I don't know, like those, specifically those that I just mentioned, can lead to people feeling guilty, shameful, like having low self-esteem, feeling like they're worthless without God, and before they even have a chance to fully understand themselves or become adults, they are already taught all of these concepts. So you're already starting with a fresh scratch kid, and then throwing like guilt and weakness at them. And it's pretty sad. So it does matter what kind of stories we tell kids. um, what we read to them, or like what beliefs we present to them as a fact. um, and the Bible stories are some of those stories that we need to look at, because they're going to shape their brains. So let's look at, since you already here, Joe, I was filling everybody in on how you're not very familiar with a lot of Bible stories.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not. I mean, I've never read the Bible. I only know stories that I've heard people tell, or either like through like children type stories that I've seen.
yeah,
The
so
only
I,
knowledge I have of the Bible now is basically that I've been learning from you, as you've been teaching me quite a bit.
that's good. So we're gonna look at, the more interesting ones today.
I say that's my wife. She learns about the Bible whether she likes it or
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I guess I've been doing that with poor Joe. So this was not that bad, but we have to look at the way that, like I said, that this same thing that happens with the story of creation, to me, happens with the story of Noah. Um, when it's the way that I think Joe remembered it was when we first started talking about atheism and all that, was probably the way it's told to kids, like, oh, there was a global flood, and kind of like super short story, and then God saved Noah. Noah built the ark, put the animals, and that's that, and they were saved. But there's like not a whole lot of questioning on
Yeah, I never
about
really
the
questioned that
details.
story at all until like you started like getting me to question it, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. It's like
So we're gonna watch this
don't get
quick
me
one.
started on the magic zoo boat.
That I heard you
Oh
call it
man.
that yesterday. I thought it was hilarious. The magic zoo boat. That's gonna be the new name for
Jim
it.
Bob, by the way, believes in the magic zoo boat. And Yeah, and he, he's calling me a dummy, and it's like, you believe in a magic zoo boat. That's all I hear is magic zoo boat.
Right. Yeah.
It is a ridiculous story in so many ways.
Well, the thing that really made me not believe it or think that it's like silly is just basically that there's really no documentation that it was like a global flood. It's kind of just
Yep.
there's no record in like any other civilizations during that time that documented that there was flooding. So it's basically it's a region based story, from what I understand.
Yep. Floods happen. People tend to live by water, especially before you
Yeah.
could run pipelines to get people water and all, and the irrigation systems and the dams and everything we have to get people water. You live by the water, and here in Ohio, where we're bordered by Lake Erie, and when you live by the water like my uncle did, guess what? The water comes up every once in a while, especially when you have a storm. But the rest of the time, they're right there on the water. Back in the day, it was you needed water. Today, it's recreational. You get to enjoy it and everything. But every once in a while, it floods, and they deal with it because that's what happens. And
Yeah.
it's good advice to have a story that, hey, this place floods, to remind people, right? And maybe you might want to keep a boat, right? If you live by the water, and maybe have a plan for your animals to get to high ground, all these kind of things. And when a lot of these things are the same thing they tell folks for hurricane preparedness, and disasters and all this stuff. Have a plan, know where high ground is. These are good things to know, but when you turn it into a magical zoo boat, I think it loses the meaning of, be prepared,
Yeah, that I hadn't thought about it that way, but that really makes sense. It could have been just like you said, if you live by water, the first time that you live there, it might take you by surprise. But then you learn the patterns, and you learn, hey, it floods on this season or that season, or twice a year, or whatever it is, depending on the area, or the water comes up to this height or that height. And yeah, so that's how you learn and take notes, so that the next time you can be prepared for that specific situation. And it does sound like it could have been potentially something uh, to do with the way that Noah's story was told. But yeah,
Well,
somebody went and was like, like that one
yeah.
person that's always exaggerating the stories and like adding all
Oh,
kinds of
yeah, it makes a good story.
amazing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and
Because
yeah, that's the
otherwise,
thing. In a time where it's oral traditions and oral stories sitting around, the proverbial campfire telling these stories, you have to tell a good story to keep people's attention, right?
Yeah, entertainment.
So yeah, and that's same thing with my movies or any other media we enjoy, right? It's a good story, right? Bob walked down the street just isn't a good story,
yeah,
Bob walked down the street and this monster came up out of the sewer and Bob had to fight it. Well, now you've got a good story. You catch
yeah. Now
somebody's
you got
attention.
everybody's ears.
Right. So obviously you have to tell a good story. Sure. But
Do you,
when they bring up that there's flood stories all around the world and they try to equate that to their flood story, once again, it's all the stories are different. They're not all global. They're not always supernatural. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes they're wrath. Sometimes it's the gods fighting amongst themselves. There's all the different reasons that the water, one of them, was it one of the giant monsters is sad or something and it cries and that's why there's a flood, So it's obviously, yeah, they're telling stories of floods and they're embellishing it to tell a good story in all these different cultures around the world.
Yeah, and I mean the flood story in the Bible is pretty graphic, but as we were mentioning earlier, for kids, it seems like they always embellish them in a way that's
Well, it's
very,
so
very
stupid.
positive and very
It's just
sweet.
so it's just so stupid though. When if you sum it all up, okay, God didn't like its creation. Okay, I can understand that. All right. Don't like it. Okay. Maybe you're like a painter, right? And you're painting, and you're like, I don't like it. And you get your palette knife out, and you just
Like, whoosh, start
scrape the
over.
canvas off, right? Yeah. Okay. I get it. But he started over with the same exact thing he didn't like. Same people, same animals, same plants, right?
Like, what's the purpose of that then, right? Yeah, no, I see that.
If the story would have been that somehow there was a change, like in the past, the animals were bad, the plants were bad, you couldn't eat them, everything was just terrible. The you couldn't eat tomatoes, you know what I mean? And then, but after the flood, God got rid of all those bad things, and now but it's not. It's like it just started right over with the same thing, right? That's my biggest problem with it. It doesn't make any sense to start over with the same thing that you were so disgusted by, you just wanted to scrape it off and start over with.
Yeah. Let's watch this one real quick, because I have some other comments on that too.
A long time ago, there lived a man named Noah. Noah was a good and faithful man who always tried to do what was right. The world around him, however, had become filled with wickedness and evil deeds. People had forgotten to be kind to each other, and worst of all, forgotten to obey God. God saw the state of the world and decided that a fresh start was needed. But because Noah was such a good man, Noah found grace in the sight of God. God decided to save Noah, his family, and the animals from the coming flood that would cleanse the earth. God spoke to Noah, telling him to build a huge boat called an ark. This was no ordinary boat. It was to be big enough to hold Noah's family and 2 of every kind of animal on the earth, 1 male and 1 female. Noah listened carefully to God's instructions, and even though building the ark was a huge task, he followed God's instruction completely. Noah worked hard, and after many years, the ark was finally complete. Just as he finished, God gave Noah a 7-day notice. On that 7th day, the skies grew dark and rain began to fall. It wasn't just any rain. Water fell from the sky, and the ground opened up, and fountains of water spewed out. It was the beginning of a great flood that would cover the entire earth. That great flood covered the highest mountain. Noah, his family, they had gathered food and supplies, enough to last them for the entire time they would be on the ark. Just before it began to rain, God closed the door of the ark. After 40 days and 40 nights, the rain stopped, but the water covered the earth for many more months. Noah and his family took care of the animals, and they all waited patiently for the water to go down. Finally, the ark had rested on the mountains of Ararat. Noah sent out a raven to see if there was any dry land. Then he sent a dove. It came back because it couldn't find anywhere to land. The second time, the dove returned with an olive leaf in its beak, showing that the water was going down and plants were growing again. The third time, the dove didn't return, which meant it had found a place to live on dry land. At last, God told Noah that it was safe to leave the ark. Noah, his family, and all the animals left the ark and stepped onto dry land. They were grateful to be alive and promised to take care of the earth and each other. To show his promise never to flood the whole earth again, God put a rainbow in the sky.
What's that?
The famous rainbow.
Oh, yeah. The stolen rainbow.
The stolen
rainbow.
rainbow.
Is it this one? This one? This one.
That one.
I got my rainbow. I got my rainbow.
I saw that. You stole it. You thief.
That's right. I took it from Ken Ham.
So I do have a question that I never thought of before. So were they the only people that were supposed to be survivors after the flood, or were there others that were supposedly survived?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So
just them.
so
Noah.
mankind restarted with them again. Like,
Yep.
It was Noah, his wife, his children, and their wives. Right,
Yep. Three
three.
sons and their
Yeah,
wives. Yep.
and the wives. So I mean, there
interesting.
was a little bit more variety than Adam and Eve, I guess, but still
A
not enough.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not too much more.
No
So,
worries. You got super hyper evolution after the flood, so
oh
it just
yeah.
takes care of that problem.
Here's here's an interesting one I just thought of right now, because when I've asked people before, how it was that incest was okay for Adam and Eve, and there was no degradation of their gene pool, because apparently their genetics were so pure. That's the answer I've gotten from believers. But that's not where we supposedly come from anymore, right? Because then happened the whole global flood, and then the game restarted, the game reset. Did Noah and his family have a pure genetic pool?
No, it wouldn't have been unless. Well, no, it can't be. Yeah, because
Right.
sin entered the world with Adam and Eve. So yeah,
Exactly.
everybody's gone down from there, supposedly in their view.
And the story goes, okay, obviously the story for kids right there that we just watched um doesn't really include all the those gory details that we just
Didn't mention the
described, right?
Nephilim either. Where were the
Yeah,
Nephilim?
right. Those were like the giant sons of God and man or something like that. They were like,
That was one of the reasons for the flood was to get rid of the Nephilim because they
yeah,
were scourge on the creation too.
yeah. Um, but so the
Dang
story,
horny angels, anyways.
oh,
Keep your angels in line, God. I mean, gosh, can't anybody control themselves?
Oh man.
is oh, I was gonna say that it's interesting because another part of that story is that Noah was such a good guy, and that's why God saved him, right? Because he was, sin free, I guess, or at least very low level of sin. But there is a part. I'm trying to find the exact verse real quick. Uh, okay, so it says that Noah had made some wine, and he drank the wine and became drunk, and he laid uncovered in his tent, meaning that he was naked. Um, and then one of his relatives saw him naked and told his brothers, and so they came in and tried to cover him up. And then when he woke up, he was pissed off because he was drunk and naked, and he was mad that the person saw him naked, and so that's why he cursed the Canaanites, because it was Canaan that saw him naked. Uh, that's an interesting part of Noah's story that everybody leaves out. That he later had all the Canaanites killed because someone saw him naked while he was drunk. Anyways,
And
yeah, that's some very
curse.
very
They got
fine
the
example.
they
Yeah, I
got the
never heard
curse of
that.
Ham too.
Oh
What is
yeah,
that
the
about?
curse of Ham. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a curse on Ham for something too, and that's what they used for a long time against folks of color was the curse of Ham. That line were not white people, so they were already cursed.
Yeah, I never heard that before. Interesting.
Yeah. Joe, you were saying, that there was no proof of a global flood, and yeah, that's correct. I remember I wrote. I made a video a while back about.
And Aunt Jers said Ham laughed at him. That's why it's called the curse of Ham.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. He laughed at him. That was why. Okay. So
Wonder
once
what he
our
was
Ham
laughing
laughed,
at.
and
It's like, dude, you should probably cover that tiny thing up. Nobody wants to see that.
I mean, he was probably stumbling around, waving it, maybe doing the elephant. I mean, there's no telling what was going on there.
He
Yeah,
had his
but anyways,
priorities straight, though. The first thing he was worried about was making some wine, right?
right.
You know, the whole world's
that
destroyed, and
was
yeah,
before the ark or after the flooding.
I think it was after.
That was after. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
well,
you need some fermentation time and everything. So he was planning it, right away. Get that wine made.
I bet he brought some grapevines into the ark.
Well, they probably had a lot of rotting fruit on there if they had all the food on there that they said with no refrigeration for that long.
It was all fermenting in the hull.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Possibility. There we go.
Maybe that's how they discovered one. Like he just dumped a bunch of them in a bucket and forgot about it, and he was like, "Oh, what's that?" Let me test it. Anyways, Joe, you were asking about like the areas that were flooded, and there is records of the time where allegedly the flood happened, which was it should have been in 2300 BC. And so during those times, we have lots of records from Egyptian dynasties, like their kingdoms or stuff that were they kept really good records during that time. They had libraries, they had writing systems. Then in South America, there was the Corral civilization. They had like these numerical ways of keeping records where they will take a string and like I don't know if it was a date or something like that, or things that they needed to add up, like how many animals they had or whatever. They will tie up a knot into each one of these strings and basically keep record of whatever. So I mean, we have ample records of different areas of the world that those civilizations never had a pause in record keeping. So during the time that the supposed global flood happened. So how do they explain that? They can't.
What is the reasoning or the argument, like when you bring that up as as evidence? Like how do people normally argue back to debunk that claim, that there was no global flood?
Moving the goalpost,
Yeah.
being like, cool, maybe it didn't happen at that time. Or maybe some of them will even go as far as to say, well, no, but maybe it was a a local flood. And that's when they kind of start changing and adjusting the story to what they already said, but trying to adjust it to what you are telling them.
Well,
Presenting.
I was hearing that story, when I was younger as a kid, I always thought it was just kind of magical. Like, oh, that's cool, two of every animal, every species. But as an adult, when I think about it, it's kind of like, okay, like how did they travel? How did you get all these different species from other sides of the world, like over there, to that one specific location and load them on that boat? And
yeah,
God did it.
God did it for him.
No, it didn't have anything to do with it. They just came there because God did it.
Okay. So that's what they say then. Okay.
Yeah, or it was the aliens. Maybe
and that's
aliens,
fine.
Like suck them up and drop them.
Plop them on the boat.
Yeah. And that's what we've been talking about a lot lately with the creationists trying to use science to explain things when you can't, right? You just say it was magic, right? God brought the animals to the boat, God took the animals from the boat and put them back all on their continents, right? What they'll say is like there was a land bridge to Australia. Well, that would be a big land bridge because that's some deep ocean to get to Australia, okay? There's no evidence of it, right? There was no way people walked to Australia. There was no way kangaroos hopped to Australia. There's just no way. And when they try to add all these things in, they think they've got answers, but anybody that has a clue knows that it's terrible. It's made up nonsense. And those that do go looking, they often leave a bad taste in their mouth because they feel like they were lied to, when they go to look up something and find out that it's not true.
Yeah, like you believe that your whole life, and then you realize like it's nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were discussing earlier that is exactly why they start with stories like the younger version for like 5 or 6 when you're barely starting to read, and you're barely starting to like understand this the concepts of these stories. So they have to make them look nice and sugar coated so that they don't sound so negative. And by the time that you get into adulthood, if you read the actual full story and you are a little bit shocked, then you already have the foundation of, well, no, this is a good story. This was God's story. Like, God did this because we were sinful, because we were horrible, because we were human, and so you're already so convinced that humans are terrible that you're going to make any excuse for what's in the book.
And that again always bothered me. It's in the image and likeness of, and you're just awful. And it's like, then what does it say about the one that we are made in the image and likeness of if we are just so awful, right?
Yeah,
Maya wants to know.
Is God like us?
It's totally aliens. The aliens are demons.
Aliens and demons, right? Yeah.
There's no aliens. They're demons because for some reason Satan
Maya,
needs to make UFOs and put demons in them and have them crash into the planet. Why, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I'm working on it. I've got lots of string and lots of tacks, and we work on these things often at the captive desk.
So, Joe, do you remember the story of Abraham and his son Isaac?
Not really in detail, no.
Okay. So this is the kids' version. It's just 2 minutes, so we're gonna put that one on.
Stories of the Bible. God's promise for Abraham. This is Abram, who later will be known as Abraham. Hey. When Abram was in the land called Canaan, God told him to look over the land as far as his eyes could see. God promised.
So that's Canaan that we were mentioning a minute ago, the one that saw Noah naked.
Okay.
So each person will get like their own land basically and call it whatever their name was. So now Abraham came into Canaan's land.
That the land would be blessed and that Abram would have many children. 25 years passed. Abram and Sarai were very old and still had no children. God appeared to Abram and said, "Do not be afraid. I am your shield. A son is coming. Look at the heavens and count the stars. Someday, you will have as many children as there are stars in the sky." Years later, Abraham and Sarai still had no children. God appeared to Abram again and told Abram that his name would no longer be Abram, but it would be Abraham, which means father of many nations. God also told
like Luigi
Abraham
there.
that Sarai's name would be...
He's a man of few words.
Yeah. No, he sounded like Mario or Luigi.
Oh, like the little voices that they make, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, ah.
He changed to Sarah. God promised to bless Sarah and told Abraham that she would become pregnant and have a son. God made a covenant with Abraham, and God gave Abraham a way to show that he and his children were part of God's covenant. Abraham and Sarah did have a son named Isaac.
It's a me,
God's promise.
Abraham.
That might be why they use those noises, because they're like probably attractive to kids, right? Like kids are like, oh, it looks like a. I mean, it reminds me of Mario or whatever.
It's hilarious. Oh.
Yeah. Ah. And I was just thinking, it says they were so old, and then 25 years went by, and they still had no children. But yeah, and then I remember that they're like 900 when they die, so they are like 900 years old, and the Bible tells you that. So
It says they're 900 years old, that they live to that age.
yeah, what do you
Wow,
think
okay.
about that?
Yeah, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem logical.
Well, the way I understand it is that it's a misinterpretation that these were family lines, right? So yeah, let's say, Grandpa Smith, begat, children, and they begat children, but eventually there weren't children, or the children went to other families, like maybe they were, girls, right? And then they took on a married name, right? And the family line would diminish and disappear. That would make more sense of 900 years, right? You could have so many generations, and then the family, just like with me, I'm like one of the last ones on my side of the family, right? And my boys are it, and one has already made up his mind that his girlfriend's kids are enough for him, and the other one's like, so, this might be it, you know what I mean? For our, line of the
Yeah, their
family.
lineage, into the
Yeah.
lineage.
So it could have, and I know it goes back to Scotland and to Germany. So yeah, you could take, a few hundred years real easy and then say, yeah, the Dave line was, 400 or 500 years. Then, I can see where it's just a misinterpretation of how they were keeping the because, it's all about the bloodline. You know what I mean? That family name is important for kings and all these kind of things, So I think that's the explanation that I tend to agree with, that those are meant to be family lines, not literal ages of people.
I like that interpretation.
But how do you explain the book of Numbers? Because in the book of Numbers, it goes very in depth, which I did read. Yes, I read the book of Numbers, and it is about numbers. But it goes into much detail about each person's. Like this one had a child at this age and died at that age, and there's a lot of them that go to like 900, 800 years and so on.
Well, if they already know the stories, then they're writing into those stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, again, like when you're retelling it around the campfire, you know what I mean? How did they retell it? And ultimately, though, the lineages in the Bible are for bloodlines, right? Because ultimately, it's supposed to go to Jesus, which puts him in the bloodline of David and everything, to be to sit on the throne, which he never did. But that's how important, the bloodline recording is. And I don't think, and they use those genealogies to date the earth at less than 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
And once again, that's not the purpose of those. Those are to keep track of a bloodline for the Messiah. That's why they're in there.
Yeah, so they could even be misinterpreting the age of the earth,
Well, sure. I mean, they misinterpret the prophecy, AJ. I mean, they've got Jesus as the Messiah. Where in the prophecies does it say Jesus is going to, or the Messiah is going to die, right? That wasn't part of the prophecy. The prophecy says he's going to do all these great things, right? Not just, oops, got crucified. Sorry. That's not the prophecy,
The
So
prophecy
if
was not fulfilled.
yeah, if they can take that and turn it into Jesus, yeah, it's easy to turn all kind of things around, go
Yeah.
back and make things fit. When they say the New Testament repeats things that are in the Old Testament, and it's like, well, of course, because the Jews had the Old Testament, and then they kind of certain groups broke off and became Christians. So of course they're going to repeat Bible stories in the New Testament.
Yeah.
It's declared as some kind of divine thing or something, and it's no, they knew these stories and they incorporated them into their stories, and that's why Jesus mentions the flood and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, there wouldn't be a New Testament if it wasn't for the Old. So
Exactly.
And Jared says, if they're having kids at 900 years old, who's changing whose diapers?
Yeah.
that's a very good point, Jer.
Hey, more
So-
power to them, man. I mean, I'm pushing 60 and I'm feeling it. It's like
At
you're a couple
900
hundred
for
years
real.
old and you can still go. Hey, good for you, man. I'm worried about pulling a muscle nowadays.
So did
Right.
they conceive? Did God just make his wife pregnant, or did he allow them to procreate the baby? I'm just curious on that too.
I
Or
think this
did she just
story,
magically become pregnant?
no, it alleges to like kind of both, I guess you could say. Kind of like the pregnancy being a miracle from God or a blessing from God. But yeah, it does happen with the two of them.
It would be, but it seems like encouragement because God kept telling it. Because what, it was at least twice God said, "Don't worry, she's going to get pregnant." Like,
Yeah.
don't stop. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
It's
don't
going to
give up.
happen. So
Keep at it.
yeah, if by the numbers, even if you're having trouble conceiving, if you do it a lot, you can overcome, whatever the issue is, low sperm count or whatever it might be, right? If you doing it half dozen times a day, you just might get there,
Yeah, probably eventually gonna happen. Yeah.
Right.
One day he's gonna
Yeah.
hit the target. All right, let's see what else the story says.
Prophecies came true for Abraham and Sarah. Abraham became the father of many nations, and from his child came children, and from their children more children, until Abraham's descendants were truly more numerous than the stars in the sky, just as the Lord had promised.
What a promise.
Check this out.
But it says nothing about the actual story that happened.
Yes.
Right.
String and tack over here. It went from you are going to have many kids to you're going to have one kid when you get really old, but it's going to have a lot of descendants, and those are going to be your kids. Yeah, that's a lot of string and tacks.
But first you have to kill that baby.
Well,
So one
these
day,
things happen in the Bible.
Hey, that wasn't mentioned in that story. Come on.
right?
Tell
Yeah,
me.
because
tell me more.
one day God wants to test Abraham to see, how much he actually loves God. So he tells him to take his son into the woods, right? And it says that Abraham loaded up his donkey. He took his kid and two servants and cut through the woods, cut some wood to set up a nice little fire. And so he says that he tells his servants to stay with the donkeys, and then he takes the boy and he tells him that they're going to go worship. And as the two of them are going up together, Abraham seems to have a knife, and his son is like, "Father," I'm reading off the.
What's with the
Bible
knife,
story.
Dad?
Yeah, he's like, "Yes,
A
my
big
son.
knife.
The fire and wood are here," said Isaac, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" A burnt offering is like an offering that they
Right.
had to rip up apart and burn in the fire to let God know that they were absolving their sins and that their devotion and all that. So that was a burnt offering. And then Abraham answered, well, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. And then they reached the place that God told him about. So he built an altar and arranged the wood. He tied up his son, laid him on the altar on top of the wood, and then reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham, here I
Just kidding.
am. Don't lay a hand on the boy. He says, do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. So Abraham looked up and he found a ram. Apparently, he sacrificed the lamb instead of the kid. And I mean, for the kid that was talking a minute ago, like, "Hey, Dad, where's the burnt offering?" Now the child is pretty quiet. I wonder if he like bunked him out or something before he tied him up. That's a bedtime story right there. That's a bedtime story for the children.
There's a meme that floats around where the kid's got this really dirty look and he's looking at his dad, and it's the walk back down the mountain with Isaac and his father. It's like, dude,
Like, what was
what
up
were you?
with that?
Yeah, you had in the knife, and yeah, I'm never turning my back on you again, and we're not going anywhere in the woods together or anything ever again. Yeah, the dad is clearly a little off. And what else they left out, that the sign of the covenant then between Abraham and God is, what do you do with a knife?
I don't know.
No.
That's when you start trimming a part of your body part off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Abraham also had the idea to sit around the campfire one night and say, hey, I just had a great idea, and pulls out his knife and starts and then all the guys are sitting around and they're like, that's a good idea.
So everybody
Yeah.
everybody like cuts off their.
So they started circumcising themselves.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, there's, what is it? One of the battles, they bring back 1,000 foreskins or 100 foreskins or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, because God asks him for 100.
100, yeah.
Foreskins. Kind of like in appreciation of him, of God letting them win, right? And so
Yeah.
instead of 100, he brings back 200.
So they're on the battlefield after the battle.
He's going around just like.
And they're
slicing
going
off,
around
like, these,
collecting
like,
them in a bag
Wow.
for souvenirs.
So did they make those into burnt offerings as well? Did they at least barbecue it to like put some seasoning on it and beef jerky? I don't know. That's
No,
Why
you
I
make
was
them. You make them
wondering-
into a wallet. That way, your money can grow.
Oh, so yeah, that would work too, I guess. Oh
Yeah.
man.
But
Yeah, so it's all terrible all around. And, well, just imagine. I mean, you're sitting around with your pals, and this goes, for both sexes too. They've mutilated girls too, right? Where you just decide to take a knife to what you would think is a very vital
sensitive
area.
part.
Well, and just vital to, reproduction and everything, and all that, I mean, it's one of your most important parts, and God wants you to take a knife to it. It's like, really? Really? That's what the voice said in your head. And they all just said, yeah, now think, and you think, oh,
That's good.
that's just silly. Well, just a few years ago, there was a guy, Indonesia somewhere, where he had a following. He convinced 400 of his members to castrate themselves.
What?
So, I mean,
Okay, I've not heard of that.
I mean, that's a good salesman.
Yeah, for real. Very, very big salesman.
Hey, guys, I was thinking.
This would be a great idea.
and they don't go, dang, dude, you're totally out of your mind. We're out of here. 400 of them, or however many were hanging around with Abraham, all thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's take a knife to our stuff and,
I mean, it had
and to our kids and everything. And yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
like it had to have been some speech, right?
Yeah, really, I mean, I can understand people getting suckered into buying a used car that, was held together with some duct tape or something, but I mean, we're talking about, taking a knife and mind you, no anesthetic, right?
Oh man, yeah, I can't even imagine. That's just wild.
Okay. Yeah, these are grown men
In modern times too.
taking a knife, and in modern times, yeah, they just, but back then you're not talking about surgical steel or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering what percentage of people got infections and actually like died from that. I mean,
a bunch of the kids get herpes from the rabbis that bite it off and stuff.
Oh, wow, yeah. I've heard of that one.
Yeah. They pass around STDs, and yeah, it's totally unsanitary for many reasons. Right? Yeah.
Wow.
And then, oh, well, you don't have a knife? Joe, you don't got a knife? Don't worry about it.
I'll bite it off.
Just bite it off. It's like, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. It's like, how do you convince people of something like that? And then, we joke about believing in Noah's Ark and stuff and all that, but I mean, you can convince these people to take a knife to their junk. I mean, it's really disturbing.
Yeah, then those other concepts are pretty easy to think that they would believe that if they would go to that extreme. That's wild.
But that's how you have to lay why you have to lay the foundation from so early on, man.
Yeah, really young. That it's a good idea to do this. And implant that in your mind. That it must be a good idea. And of course, it's ridiculous because God's creation and everything, and then He wants you to cut part of it off. That doesn't make any sense either. Why? It says clearly in Leviticus, you're not supposed to mark your body or cut your body or tattoo your body.
I was going to say we're supposed to have been made perfect in God's eyes, right? So why do we need to cut
circumcise?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that one very recently because with all the trans hate and people claiming, trans people shouldn't be changing their body. I'm like, but isn't one of the main things to like chop your part of your privates off? It's in your book. Anyways, speaking of sacrifices, so in the first one, God is like, you know what? Sacrifice your child to me to show me how much you love me. And then Abraham is got the knife right at the neck, and then God's like, never mind. I was just messing around, like don't do that. I don't need no sacrifices. But then later on, there's another story which is kind of similar in a way. So let's look at that story.
In the land of Israel, there was a brave warrior named Jephthah. He was strong and wise, and the people of Israel made him their leader to fight against their enemies, the Ammonites. Before going into battle, Jephthah prayed to God. He made a promise, Lord, if you help me win this battle, I will give you whatever comes out of my house first when I return home. God gave Jephthah victory. He and his soldiers won the battle, and the people rejoiced. But when Jephthah returned home, something unexpected happened. The first person to come out of his house was his only daughter, dancing and playing the tambourine. She was so happy to see her father. Jephthah's heart broke. He fell to the ground and cried, "Oh no, my daughter, I made a promise to God and I cannot break it." His daughter was sad but brave. She said, "Father, if you made a promise to the Lord, you must keep it. But please give me 2 months to go to the mountains and spend time with my friends." Jephthah agreed. After 2 months, his daughter returned, and Jephthah kept his promise to God. The Bible does not say exactly how she was sacrificed, but she was never able to marry or have children. To this day, the daughters of Israel remember her and honor her courage. Lesson for children. Be careful with your words. Promises are important, and we must think before making them. God does not ask for human sacrifices. Today, he wants our love and obedience, not sacrifices. Jephthah's daughter showed courage. She honored her father and respected God.
So
Wow.
it's pretty interesting there because it says that's the kid's version, obviously, and toward the end it says, you know, that she asked him for 2 months to go into the woods. I don't know how old she was, but it seems like she was young if she didn't have any kids or husband or anything. Um, but in the actual story, it says, it reads, "You may go," he said, and he let her go for 2 months. And they went into the hills and wept because she will never marry. And after 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. And that last sentence right there kind of like cracks me up, but at the same time makes you a little bit sick. Like, what? Why did it have to include that she was a virgin?
And if he didn't kill her, it sounds like he once again took a knife to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so they say that she wasn't able to marry or have kids, so he didn't. I assume that he didn't kill her then, right? But he somehow disfigured her where she could not, when no one want to marry her, or she could not have children.
Well, it says that she was meant to be a sacrifice, right? So,
Either way, this is another one like Abraham. You know, it's like, hey, kid, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is I talked to God. The bad news is what God told me to do.
Well, they tried to turn it into a good learning lesson, basically saying like, be careful what you promise. I don't know.
Better listen or else.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Well, on the very last part, it says that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah. So I'm thinking that he did kill her, but it doesn't say how. Yeah, but it says that he did to her as he had vowed. So it sounds like he burned her because she was meant to be a burnt sacrifice. Okay,
Because
there it is.
the odor is pleasing to Yahweh.
Yeah, I found the part. It says, "If you give the Ammonites into my hands," that's what Jephthah told God. "Whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering." Okay, so
So he
he did
burned her
burn.
then.
He burned her.
So they had a family barbecue. Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
basically.
Wow.
Yes, but the girl ended up in the barbecue.
Wow.
That's some kid's story, right? But you see how.
Where was the angel saying, wait,
Wait,
Right.
don't do
I was
it.
just kidding.
Don't do it.
Why did God allow that? Like he already had him saying, you know what, I'll give you anything, like put the kid on the fire. Why did he not stop it? Did he want that sacrifice? Funny thing about what you just said about the that the Lord likes the smell of it, of the burnt meat. Because when Herman Meta, what was his channel's name? The Friendly Atheist. When he reads the Bible, it cracks me up every time that they're doing a burnt offering because the way he reads it, and it's this one little quote that says, "A pleasing aroma to the Lord," because it reads exactly that way from the Bible, and I always think it's hilarious because it's like, God likes the smell of burning flesh.
And all the time, all those animals, it was known to God, could never be a sufficient sacrifice. It was only appeasement because God liked the smell. So all those animals, and remember, a sacrifice isn't eaten, right? It's sacrifice. So all those animals gave their all. just so God could smell them being burnt up, knowing all the time that wasn't going to be the final sacrifice, and it would have to be a person in Jesus.
Right. But
What
technically,
a plan.
he allowed other sacrifices, even though Christians
And
claim
yeah,
that
and
God
yeah,
never, yeah, that God never wanted or accepted human sacrifices. He did.
yeah,
Technically, he
you
did.
just said one right there. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to
These
the
are kind
next
of depressing, AJ.
thing.
I mean, come on.
I
I
think
came
all of
here
them
with
are
teddy
probably
bears and
depression.
rainbows. Look, teddy bears and rainbows. This was supposed to be children's hour. You're really bumming me out.
I don't know. Y'all are making me hungry.
The poor children.
Barbecue.
That's all I can think about is barbecue now.
Oh, we got warm weather coming pretty much after this weekend. We're going to be into the good season.
It's nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
grilling season. Oh yeah. I had to make pork chops in the oven today. That's really a sin. I mean,
The pork chops in the oven.
they should have been on the grill, but we've had a lot of rain here too. And
Where did you
yes,
say you're at? I forgot
I'm
where
in
you mentioned.
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. Well, we're here in Texas. We've already been. We're already at the temperature where we're frying. We're baking ourselves, like, and if we walk outside almost. So
You guys make it through the storms okay the last couple of days?
yeah, we did. It kind of it kept missing us.
Good.
Thankfully, we got a little bit of rain, but yeah, there was some areas around us got some pretty rough weather.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain lately. And then I was saying last night, after the sky had been just so dark, and we'd gotten so much rain, just before sunset last night, the sun poked out and it just skimmed the tops of the trees. It was real beautiful. But that was it. That was the sun for the day. So today we had sunshine, so it was really nice to see it. But
yeah, when you don't see the sun
needs
for a
to
couple
warm
of
up.
days, yeah.
Everything's nice and green, though. My kid just cut the grass and he needs to cut it again. So he's
Yeah,
not too happy about that.
we don't have that problem here either. So things have been growing. But we're at the time where this is like, we're thankful for this rain that we have right now, because then we'll get to where we won't have rain for months and everything just like turns brown and dead, and it's like 115 outside. And so we're not looking forward to that.
I guess it's so hot
We
here.
get
Like the last few years, it's been like over 100 most of the summer.
we get the humidity, so if it gets over 85 or so, it gets real unbearable with
Feels
the humidity.
bad.
Yeah. You can't breathe, it's like heavy to breathe.
Oh, believe me, we know.
And,
We get the humidity here too, and then it's it'll be 100, and then we get what they call I can't remember the exact term, but I think it's called the bulb effect, where the humidity and the temperature are at the same level, and then like you can't sweat anymore, basically, and you can actually die from that.
Yeah. Okay, you guys wanted an inspiring story. We're gonna read the story of Job.
Yeah, let's change the atmosphere.
Job.
Come on.
Trust, faith, and trust. Okay. I
Poor
am
Job.
gonna quickly run out and you guys watch this and I'll be right back, okay?
All right.
I'm returning.
Welcome to our Bible Stories for Kids channel. Have you ever wondered how strong your faith is? What would you do if everything you loved was taken away? This Bible story for kids tells the tale of a man who faced unimaginable challenges but never lost his trust in God. Get ready to dive into a timeless story that will inspire you to hold on to hope, no matter what life brings. And don't forget, kids, click that like and let's take flight.
Oh, yeah.
Once upon a time, there was a man named Job who loved God very much.
Poor Job.
He lived in a house surrounded by nature, with many animals around him. Job had a happy family, with sons and daughters who made him smile every day. One day, God and Satan had a conversation in heaven about Job. God said that Job was a very good man who loved him deeply. But Satan doubted this and claimed that Job only loved God because he had an easy, happy life. God decided to show Satan just how faithful Job truly was, even in hard times. He allowed Satan to test Job's faith, but with one condition: Satan could not harm Job directly. Then, Satan began bringing troubles into Job's life. Job's animals disappeared, his servants left, and sadly, even his sons and daughters were taken away forever. Job was very sad, yet deep in his heart, he continued to love and trust God. Seeing that Job remained faithful, Satan asked for permission to cause even more suffering. God agreed, but Job still stayed a true friend of God. He became very ill, with painful sores covering his body, but he never gave up on God. Job's friends came to comfort him, but they didn't understand why he was so sorrowful. They said hurtful things, thinking Job had done something wrong to deserve all this. Still, Job kept trusting God, even when everything seemed so hard. Then Job decided to speak with God. He didn't complain or demand that everything be fixed right away. Instead, he simply wanted to understand why all these things were happening. God answered Job in a wonderful way, showing his infinite wisdom. In the end, God restored Job's fortunes. He gave him back double what he had lost, both in animals and in children. Job was very grateful to God and learned a valuable lesson. Even when we face hardships and don't understand why, we can trust in God. The story of Job teaches us
So
that
basically,
God is
God likes
always
likes
by
to
our
just
side.
fuck with you to see that you're loyal to him. But why?
Job was a righteous man, okay? He was a righteous man, and God screwed with him, right? The
Yeah.
lesson is being righteous doesn't get you out of being screwed over by Yahweh over a wager.
Yeah, why was he? You're muted, AJ. Why was it Satan hanging out with God? That confused me too. It was
There's
like,
a
were they
good
buddies? He's like, hey, they're like, hey, let's fuck
some
with him,
beers.
right?
Yeah, I thought he was cast out of heaven. I didn't know they were still hanging out together.
They were still cool
He's
with each other.
like an elevator up there, up and
Yeah, but
down.
poor Job. Job, was a righteous man. That's one of God's people, and that's how he was treated. And then it's just like, oh well, sorry, I unalived all your kids. Here's some more. It's just so like, oh well, you know what I mean? Oh well, here's some more kids. So here's some more
Yes.
animals. Sorry, don't worry about it.
The children's story, like we just watched, it says he took away his children away forever. And then later on it says, oh, but he gave him back everything that he previously had, but more, or something like that, including his children. But no, it doesn't tell you the part where his 10 children were killed and not returned. Like, he just gave him replacement children.
Yeah,
Imagine, when I first read that story, I was really horrified because I was like, if he took my kid, like, I have just one, okay? And if somebody took my kid, killed it, and then came with a new baby and be like, oh, don't worry about that, just forget that other little kid that you had, here's a new one.
mm-hmm.
That's not going to replace the one that I just lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to me, this story is just like, it's
But see,
traumatic.
women and children are seen as chattel. They're property,
Oh, yeah.
right? So it can be. It's like I loaned Joe my rake and he broke it and he said, hey, I went to the hardware store and got another one. You know what I mean? Like you should do when you break something you borrowed from somebody, right?
It's an option.
And so it's and you say, okay, thanks. Don't worry about it, right? Appreciate it, right? Neighborly thing to do and all that. And so that's how it's just, just dismissed away. It's just some property, and the property was replaced. What's the problem?
So God's like, yeah, I killed your kids because I wanted to test you and just kind of fuck with you. But yeah, you passed. So yeah, here's some new kids.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just wild. So is this from the Old Testament or from the New
Mhm.
Testament?
Job is like one of the oldest books of the Bible.
Okay, so it's like,
Yeah. It's
okay.
like very early on. Yeah.
And then ultimately, after all this, and mind you, Job was a righteous man. He was righteous through all of these trials that he was put through, all these horrible things, right? And then God condemned him because he dared ask, why me? Am I not a righteous man? And God said, how dare you question me?
Oh yeah. I was looking for that part because yeah, at the end.
And he had to drop to his knees and repent, not for being a bad man, but for daring to ask,
for questioning,
why did you do this to me, a righteous man?
Yeah.
So don't even question it. Even if you're righteous, don't you dare question it, is what I'm getting from Job.
It's
I don't
it's
know.
a really
That's,
weird story that people try to make it a lesson in faith and trust in God, but it's really traumatic.
I
It's
don't
one
know.
of,
Like that story makes
yeah,
me see God as a bully. I mean,
it is. It's,
even
yeah,
like the kids version we just saw, like I see
yeah.
like God as a bully from that.
He's awful. He's sadistic. He making a wager with somebody's life, and his livelihood and his kids, and giving him diseases and everything over a wager. You know what I mean? And besides the fact, it's like, you're God, right? And Satan's like, oh well, this whatever they only. It's like, get out of here, dude. I already kicked you out of heaven once, right? Shut up. I don't want to talk to you. I'm God, right? No, God's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I could, totally mess with this righteous man, just for fun,
So yeah, I'm
and
down with that.
yeah, and then just hand wave it away because it's just property. I think the home they were in collapsed or something like that is in the story. And yeah, his whole family was killed.
Oh yeah. That's how
just boom, your whole family's dead, and the servant comes and says, your whole family's dead. Not like you just lost a child, like as tragic as that would be. No, your whole family's dead. The whole place got squashed because God just pancaked the place. Sorry for you. And Job's like, he still was righteous. He still, didn't curse God or anything.
No.
And all he dared ask was, and wouldn't anybody, right? If you were so devout, you dedicated yourself, and something as awful as your entire family just got wiped out, and the thought creeps in your head, why me? Why me? How dare you? How dare you, right? It's the ultimate control. Don't even question a horrible, disgusting wager I had with the devil. Don't even question that.
And they were both sitting there like watching the whole thing
And
happen.
yeah, with their popcorn, like, I told you so, right?
And Satan was like, no, that wasn't enough. And God was like, you know what? You're right. That wasn't enough. Go ahead.
And again, you would think that some kind of wager would be at least somebody that was screwing up or something, right?
Yeah, somebody who wasn't a devout follower.
Yeah, Job was a right. It specifically says I think the cartoon said he was a good man. It says he was a righteous man. That's like the highest level you can be.
Yeah, and it was more so that he was doubting himself. Like why would you do this to me? Like, what did I do wrong? But God was like, no, why are you questioning me?
Yeah, he was like doubting if he did something that would have upset God or something, that would have caused him to put him through those hardships.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how dare you even question or have that thought or anything? Don't. Drop to your knees and beg for my forgiveness for even questioning me, is what he told Job. After putting him through all that, he could have, I think he at least owed him an explanation, right? It's like, hey,
At least.
it's going to be for the good of the world. It's going to be in the Bible. People are going to learn all this stuff. Right?
Yeah,
There's
from
no
this
explanation
story.
or anything. Just, drop to your knees and repent is what he told Job.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of,
And I noticed in the video, it switched. It went from Job to Job. Did you notice that?
Oh, did it? No, I didn't realize that.
No, I didn't.
I think it might have been AI, because at one point it said Job instead of Job.
Okay. Yes, that's very likely. It did look very AI created. So I'm sure
no biggie, but
true. So speaking of the horrible things that God does to his people.
And mind you, this is again, he's not just testing Job, like with the boils and all those things, right? It's all the innocents, right? The animals and his family, paid the ultimate price, because in the end, Job was healed and got everything back, right? Mm-hmm. All these innocents had to pay the price for this sick little gamble that they had going on.
Yeah, his slaves' families. Yeah.
Yep.
He took all those other lives just so he could make a point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not just in that story, but like we were talking about Noah's Ark earlier. Like literally everybody died. Babies that were innocent that had just been born, and because they were born into sin. I guess that's what I get when I ask people like, why were the babies killed too? And they were like, well, they were born into sin, so they were already sinful. Like, how can people say a baby's sinful? A baby.
All I've heard too, that they're going to grow up to be bad, so you might as well just take them out now. And then again, it's like it's the point of free will and all these arguments that they use. That all goes out the window too, because anytime people act on their own, supposedly God drops wrath on them, right? And then when they're acting exactly righteous, like Job, God drops wrath on them.
So there's either way.
For no reason.
Yeah, might as well just be an asshole and just.
That's it. It's he just wants to drop wrath. It doesn't matter if you behave or not. You're going to get wrath. So when the excuse is you should behave, I'll point to Job. Job was righteous. He behaved. Okay, look what happened. And if you want to go to Jesus, Jesus supposedly was sinless, another righteous man, and 33 is up on up on the tree there. No thanks. Right?
Yeah. And I mean,
doesn't turn out well.
No, it did not. Mm-hmm. So you hear Christians often talk about God's nature being merciful and kind and loving and forgiving and all of these other beautiful positive adjectives. But one thing I still cannot process through my brain how people make excuses for is that God, the God that they believe in, is the same God of the Old Testament. And as I said earlier, as I pointed out, sometimes they will be like, I'm not going to read the Old Testament because we no longer go by that covenant. We don't follow Mosaic law anymore. Everything that Moses said was for their people and not for us, and so on and so forth. But when you think about it, let's pretend for a second that the book was true. Jesus came to fulfill those laws, and Jesus is God's son, which means he is the son of this God that we've just been discussing right now. So how is that same God? How can a God take all of these actions and still be considered merciful and forgiving and loving and omnipotent, all-seeing, free will giving God? Like, it does not fit the box. The description does not fit with the actions. Um, yeah. So I was just give another story, which is in the same path that we were going, children and punishments and just making us a little bit more miserable. This one's 2 minutes long. All right, let's see what it says.
David was a man after God's own heart, and he was a good king too. He loved God and he tried to live and lead God's way. One night, David took a walk up to the roof of the palace where it was cool. When he got there, he looked over at another roof and noticed a woman. The woman's name was Bathsheba. David said to his servant, "Go and tell that woman to come to the palace." When David...
He tried to be a godly man for how long? Right up until
Like
he
5
saw
seconds.
that woman taking a bath, and then forget being godly, forget all that, right?
Go
Just
get that
that
woman
quick,
now.
yeah. Oh, he was so godly, right? That's like these pastors that get caught having affairs and all this stuff. They were so godly. It's like, no, they weren't. Okay, the truly, you know, and I will give it credit to somebody that wants to be so devout, like a monk or, you know, somebody, a priest. I use the word loosely, but, you know, these people that are going to dedicate their lives, right, and be celibate and be, you know, give up worldly things, you know, don't have money and all that stuff, you know. But if it goes out the window the minute you see,
Maybe it wasn't.
you see, you know, somebody that makes you, you know, have that feeling, then no, you're not. You can't be described as that, you know? You can't be. No, you're not. Have a little willpower, buddy. And, you know, come on, Dave. I mean, geez.
Come on, Dave.
Giving Dave's a bad name, you know?
Yeah, I hear that there's a club.
I just wanted to make that point, though. You know what I mean? That they're describing him as so godly. But yeah, it's so quickly he's not godly anymore.
Yeah, all of a sudden he was like, "Ooh, that beautiful girl." But they're trying to paint it nicely, like, "Oh, he fell in love," you know.
No, that ain't it. That ain't it at all.
Yeah, let's see how the story goes. Yeah.
Go tell her to come over here, and they got busy. That's plain and simple. There was no.
She is so lovely. I want her to be mine. But Bathsheba already had a husband named Uriah, a soldier who served in King David's army. This is a problem. So David made a terrible choice. I know, I'll have Uriah killed in battle. And that's what David did. Soon, David and Bathsheba were married. David had done a very bad thing.
She didn't waste much time either. Well, but back then, the woman didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, I don't think
He
she probably did.
Yeah, if he wanted her, he was just like, I'll kill your husband and you're mine now.
Now you're mine.
Otherwise, I'll kill you too, probably. I'm sure that was the wager.
He should have felt very badly about it, but he didn't. He was just glad he didn't get caught. No one will ever know. One day, Nathan came.
Sin, as long as you don't get caught.
Yeah, you know, that's when you see some of these people with crocodile tears when they get caught, you know, and it's like, they're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry they got caught. There's a big difference. Yeah.
That's a good example.
Came to David. Nathan was a prophet who heard from God. He told David a story. Once there were two men. One of them was rich, with lots of sheep and cattle. The other man was very poor. All he had was one little lamb. He loved the little lamb so much, he made it his pet. It ate and even slept in the house like part of the family. One day, the rich man had a visitor who was very hungry, and even though the rich man had hundreds of sheep of his own, he decided to go and steal the little pet lamb from his neighbor's house to cook for the visitor's dinner. What that rich man did was so wrong. He should be punished. The rich man is you. God knows what you have done. You had everything, all of the riches of the kingdom, and Uriah was poor and only had his wife, who he loved very much. Still, you took his wife away and you had him killed. God is going to punish you for this terrible, terrible thing. bad things will happen in your family now. David suddenly realized how terrible he had been. He felt awful and was very sorry for all he had done. So he cried out to God from his heart, Lord, I'm so sorry. I know I have done things that are terrible in your sight. Will you forgive me? The Lord knew what was in David's heart. He did not just say he was sorry. He really was sorry. The Lord forgave David of his sin.
So that,
Um,
that seems simple enough, right? Like, he made a
um,
mistake, and
they
and then he
they
got
left a big
forgiven.
part of the story out.
That's the
What
one
what
you told me about,
what part did they
Dave.
leave? Let's hear it.
Well, David was punished, right? And again, an innocent was punished. The baby suffered for a week and then passed away. That
It
was
was
the punishment.
the child that they had together.
The baby, the
Okay.
infant,
Okay.
suffered miserably. In other words, imagine your child and there's nothing you can do. This baby is just screaming and crying in
Yeah,
whatever misery it's in for an entire week before it passes away. He didn't just make it pass away. He made it suffer before it passed away. That was his punishment on that baby.
and it was God. Okay, like this
God did it. Yeah.
word for word. It says Nathan went home, and the Lord. Nathan was the one that was telling David about how he was going to be punished, but that God was going to forgive him. And it says, and the Lord caused the baby boy who was born to David and his wife to become very sick. So the Bible itself says that it was God that caused the baby to be sick. And David prayed to God for the baby. He didn't eat or drink because he was kind of like uh, too worried about the baby, etc. Then it says, on the seventh day, the baby died, and his servants were afraid to tell him. When they came and looked at him, and he was like, he told them, the baby's dead. And the servant said, yes, he's dead. So he got up, he washed himself and changed his clothes and got dressed and went to get some food. Right as the baby died, I guess. And they were like, well, why are you doing this? When the baby was alive, you were crying and you wouldn't eat. But now that the baby died, you're eating. And he said, well, when the baby's still living, I cried and refused to eat because I thought, who knows, maybe the Lord will feel sorry for me and let the baby live. But now that the baby's dead, why should I refuse to eat? Can I
There's
bring
no
the baby
reason.
back to
No
life?
reason.
No. Like, wow, that's pretty rough. And then he went and
Yes.
comforted his wife and slept with her and had sexual relations with her. And she became pregnant again. And that's in the Bible. Those are not my words.
Have you ever seen God on trial?
No, I haven't. I've heard it's good, but I haven't.
Here's a link in the private chat for you. Don't show this on YouTube. You'll get a strike.
Oh, awesome,
I
awesome.
already know somebody that tried to do it. It got we got shut down pretty quick. But
Okay.
yeah, if you wanna share that in your chat or whatever, there's the link in your private chat.
Alright.
It's a very powerful movie where folks in a concentration camp put God on trial, and they bring up a lot of Bible verses that you'll find interesting if you're into these kind of discussions. And they point out a lot of these things, and one of the powerful ones in that movie is talking about that baby and some of the other horrible stories in the Bible, as well as their revelation of the new covenant, right? The Jewish people were God's chosen people, and they had a covenant with God. But God makes covenants with them just like he did with other people. And you have, like we said, the Old Testament and the New Testament, which is basically an old covenant and a new covenant. And they came to the realization that maybe God made a covenant with somebody else, like a tiny little angry man in Germany in the 1930s.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's very interesting. Yeah,
But
we're
it's a
gonna have to
very,
watch it.
very powerful movie. If you're sensitive to the, concentration camp theme and everything, be forewarned.
Warning. Yeah.
It'll tug at your heartstrings. But a very powerful movie, and you can watch it for free on YouTube. So there's the link.
Awesome. Okay, we'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, I think that's a good movie night for us.
Yeah.
Check that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay. You guys want to hear Dina's story, justice for something bad done to her, or the story of Lot's daughters? I know you know
I know
probably.
the one about Lot's daughters. So let's do the other one. I'm not familiar with the other one.
Okay.
Or we could do
Uh,
Lot's daughters. I'm good with either actually.
okay.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Because apparently they did it for kids too. So this one, I'm not really sure if this specific video is made for kids. It seems like it's more like just a cartoon version, but it doesn't really say. And it's a very small channel. They got like 50 subscribers, so I don't know if it's necessarily made for kids. But it's like a simplified story of it.
Scriptures, there exists a tale of two infamous cities, Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities were teeming with individuals who consistently made abhorrent decisions and stubbornly disregarded the counsel of others, including divine guidance. Witnessing the rampant wickedness and moral decay that plagued these settlements, God's heart was filled with profound sorrow. Determined to no longer endure such egregious transgressions, he resolved that decisive action was necessary. In the midst of this moral quagmire, a righteous man named Lot dwelled within the city of Sodom alongside his family. Recognizing Lot's unwavering commitment to virtuousness, God sought to spare him from impending destruction. Consequently, he dispatched two heavenly messengers veiled in human form to Sodom. These celestial beings arrived at Lot's abode, and he, unaware of their celestial nature, extended his hospitality by inviting them inside. Motivated by his innate kindness and generosity, Lot was driven to ensure the safety and well-being of these strangers within his city. However, the inhabitants of Sodom caught sight of these unfamiliar faces and harbored nefarious intentions towards them. They encircled Lot's dwelling, demanding that he surrender the strangers into their malevolent grasp. In a testament to his righteousness, Lot valiantly endeavored to shield his guests from harm, thereby affirming his virtuous character.
Okay, I have to stop right there because it says he valiantly endeavored to shield his guests from harm,
Yeah, he did.
affirming his virtuous character. But Joe, do you want to know how he did that? How he protected his two guests?
Tell us, AJ.
He told the angry mob outside, "Hey, I have two daughters who are virgins, and they've never seen a man, aka they've never had sex with a man. Here, have at them, do whatever you want with them." So he threw them out the door, and they did whatever, and then returned them. And yeah, so that was very valiant of him. Very, very virtuous character.
Sounds very alpha male to me, Forget women and children first, right? Knock them to the side,
You mean first into the line of fire is what you mean.
and
It was then that he received.
Oh, what you said? Sorry.
No, go ahead. You can go ahead though. I was gonna say something, but I'm sure it's gonna be mentioned. Go ahead.
Okay.
Received a solemn proclamation. You and your family must flee this city, for God is poised to unleash his wrath upon it, decimating its wickedness. The celestial messengers instructed Lot to gather his wife and two daughters and cautioned them against looking back as they embarked on their perilous journey. From the heavens above, fire and brimstone would rain down, purging the land of all iniquity. Thus, under the shroud of darkness, Lot and his family hastily fled, their footsteps hastened by trepidation and urgency. They raced as though their lives depended on it, distancing themselves from the doomed cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. In their wake, the heavens ignited, ablaze with a torrential downpour of scorching flames, reducing the once bustling metropolises to ashen ruins. The conflagration served as a resolute tempest, a cleansing inferno that swept away the wickedness that had tainted those lands. Nonetheless, amidst this cataclysmic upheaval, Lot's wife succumbed to her own tragic misstep. Succumbing to the allure of curiosity, she defied the angel's admonition and cast her gaze back upon the city's devastation, sealing her fate as an eternal monument of salt. Unfazed by the life-altering events they had witnessed, Lot and his daughters pressed forward, unflinchingly adhering to the divine warning to not look back.
Unfazed?
Screw the wife. Keep going, girls.
The whole city just went up in flame, and my wife just turned into a pillar of salt, but they were unfazed.
well, now that y'all talked about how he gave his two daughters to all these men that were surrounding his house, but now he's trying to protect them and escape the city with them, and then trying to make him seem like he's a hero, keeping his daughters safe. But yeah, he just let all these men do whatever they wanted with him. So that's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, all she did was look back.
So she turned into a salt statue because she looked back at the city?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all she did. She looked back.
Yeah. No, so because God told them, I'm sorry, the angels told them not to look back.
Not to look back, okay.
So basically what they're trying to make it seem is like she was disobedient. And so
but no worries, because a lot like Noah, is going to have alcohol at the ready.
Oh yeah. I don't think they
to
were
celebrate
that part.
To celebrate being unfazed by losing his wife and his entire civilization, he gets drunk and gets it on with his daughters.
Wow.
But they blame them. They blame the daughters, okay? The story goes that one of them got him drunk and had her way with him.
Yeah. You know what? When you're drunk, it don't work.
Night, yeah. I know, how did that...
No cooperado.
So he had to be a little bit sober,
Just enough.
Wait, because if you're blacked out, then, yeah, I don't...
But here again, though, they're quick to have the alcohol at the ready, aren't they? I mean... get out of town, right? The city's about to be destroyed. He's like, hang on a second.
Let me grab this bottle.
He's got to grab a bottle or two. Just like Noah. It's like, oh, the whole world's been destroyed, but I think I need to ferment some wine.
Right.
Priorities, right?
Because they say they went into the mountains and they were so isolated that the daughters didn't have any men to sleep with, and that's where they got their idea. Because their father was the only man around.
So they took the wine with them.
Right. So they had to have taken that wine, yeah.
And ultimately, this story is used against gay people, and it has for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Because...
Go ahead.
Well, because the thing is that in the actual Bible story, which they didn't cover right there, what the men are allegedly asking is not just for Lot to give them the guests, but rather they want to have sex with the men. So that's when Lot is like, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under my protection of my roof." That's that's how the story goes.
And yeah, when they the verse goes, now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. They were overfed, they had an overabundance, but they did not help the poor and the needy. All right. This was an abomination in God's eyes, that there were people who had abundance, not that they didn't have it, they had abundance, but they did not give to the poor and needy. Somehow this verse that clearly says they had an abundance and did not give to the poor and the needy. So God did away with them, as you have seen. They were detestable and haughty in his eyes. Because of that, somehow got twisted to gay people.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't say that. It clearly says it was people that didn't care about poor people.
Yeah, but they used it as, oh, like the people around the house were coming in trying to have sex with the man in the house.
Yeah, just because of that right there, that the suggestion of an assault taking place, and wait, don't assault them, take my property and assault it instead, right? Is somehow turned everybody into both Sodom and Gomorrah, because they were both destroyed, right? Turned them all somehow into gay people. But again, these gay people have, children and everything, and seem to be getting it on heterosexually. So the whole thing is, I don't know how they get gay people out of it.
Yeah.
It's just not in there. How the strings to go. It's just, they try really, really hard with this story.
Because it's like what you said earlier, depending on the translation, there's a different message.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the King James Version, and the wording says that the people outside of Lot's house told them, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them carnally."
Yeah,
that
know
is the
them
wording
is the
for
word.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the New International Version, for example, straight up says, bring them out so that we can have sex with them. So they changed it depending on what it fits to them. The Catholic version, sorry, one more. The Catholic version says, make them come out to us so that we can know them. It doesn't say anything else. Know them. That's it.
The Ezekiel says, now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. This is God talking. Now, what's interpreted as the haughty and detestable are somehow sexual things. However, it doesn't have to be haughty or detestable.
Right, like
the sin, it says this was the sin, okay? That's how it starts. The sin was they were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned, and did not help the poor and needy. Therefore, they were seen as they were haughty and did detestable things before me. You often say you're accused of not taking the whole verse in context as an unbeliever. Well, as a believer, they're clearly not taking it all in, because it says the sin was being overfed and unconcerned, not being haughty and detestable. Haughty and detestable were because they were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned.
But I look up the definition of haughty, and it says arrogantly superior. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's nothing.
It's not
to
sexual.
Do with sex.
No,
nothing.
So
and,
that's how they twisted that one.
And
I don't know. And obviously, you hear the term sodomy and everything coming from that, which it should mean you got money and you don't help poor people. That's what sodomy should mean.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at the word detestable by itself, it appears several times for different types of sins, including eating shrimp. wearing
Mhm.
different fabrics. So it has nothing to do with sexual stuff.
It's just
Ultimately,
that's what they immediately just want to find in
they
there when they
want
read
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
going on in their head. And then I often have to ask, if you're so straight, why are all these gay things going off in your head? You know? I mean, I'm
Then
not
try to
making
shut
light
them
of
out.
it. You know, obviously if you're gay, you're gay. I'm not one. I don't care. All right. People's sexualities are their own business, you know. But me, as mostly straight, maybe a little kinky, mostly straight guy, right? I'm not thinking about gay sex all the time, right? I'm thinking about my wife sex. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
so why,
Why are they? Yeah.
yeah, well, why is this, that's all you're thinking about, unless, you've maybe I have that inclination and maybe you should go get some and you wouldn't be so uptight anymore.
That's true.
Just maybe. Don't forget, Paul in the Bible was very irritable, and it's because he was celibate. It makes you really grouchy.
Yeah, I mean, I could.
And he
see
was
that.
like telling everybody not to mess around, and it's like, easy for you. You're celibate.
Right.
Mind your own business, buddy.
Like, speak for yourself.
Hey, you want to go that way? I'm just saying it tends to make people a little cranky. Just in my experience,
Right, like just be yourself, man. Like be openly yourself. Don't worry so
No,
much about
you
what
shouldn't
other
judge
people are
anybody.
doing.
Let anyone. I mean, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. Like, it's not up to us to judge someone's preference.
Well, it's anytime people start judging sexual preference, and it's like you go into the so-called straightest bedroom in America, and they're doing something that you would go, hey, that's kind of weird,
Yeah.
And it's like, but she likes it, and it's like, well, good, then do it some more. Don't judge them for it, more
Because
power
you know
to
what,
you.
like not all things are for everybody. Like
That's
everybody
right.
has different tastes, and that's like it's fine. It's
There
normal.
there
If
are
we were
many
all the same, that would be very boring.
there are many paths that lead to the O face. So.
To the O face.
Right. There you go.
So I've got to ask: Are we going to talk about teddy bears?
No, but I was gonna talk about a loophole that God found apparently, because I just thought about that.
What is a teddy bear reference? I'm curious now.
Oh no, just like if we're
Oh.
gonna talk about like cute stuff,
Ah,
cute stories.
okay.
It's supposed to be children's hour. I got my teddy
Yeah.
bears and everything, and
I know
Well.
you got your whole background set up. I feel like I let you down, man.
I was going to put on a pajama shirt, but I don't own one. I have pajama pants, but I don't have any shirts, so I'll have to call Jim Bob and ask to borrow one of his pajama shirts he wears on his streams because I don't have any. And yes, I'm picking on you, Jim Bob. You
I'll
big
have
head with your
little
tiny
alligator
shoulders.
toy. That's as child friendly as I got today. But the loophole. I was thinking, okay, here's the thing. We just talk about how God destroyed Canaan because Canaan saw Noah naked and whatever, and so he destroyed the whole city. Now he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because whatever sin. But right after Noah's Ark, he put out the whole rainbow that we talk about, and he was like, I'm not gonna kill humanity again. So he found a loophole. Just destroy entire cities. Not the whole world, just city by city, nuke them however you want. Like, chop off their private parts, bleed them to death, uh, whatever you want, except for drowning the whole world. That's the one that he wasn't going to do again.
And mind you, he says he won't drown the world again, but
Right.
he said next time it'll be destroyed by fire. So it's not that he's never going to destroy the world again. He'll just find a different way to do it.
There's the loophole. There you go.
Like, so it's still okay for him to kill everybody again if he wants to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ken Ham gets giddy when he talks about next time it's by fire. He does this thing when he gets up on his heels. Watch Ken Ham talk sometime. When he's full of himself, he rises a little taller because he gets up on his heels. And next time it's going to be by fire, and he gets all happy about it. Like, I can't wait for the y'all to burn. I just can't wait. Got marshmallows ready. It's disturbing. It is.
It is.
He's
Man,
giddy about the end of the world. He is.
Church is in the poophole loophole.
Yeah, the poophole loophole.
Yeah, there's that
Oh my
loophole, and
goodness.
that's a great song too.
It's a song?
Oh yeah, there's two gals. They have a little comedy act, and
Okay.
they kind of play the ukulele or something, and they sing these little suggestive songs.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check it out. That might be funny.
I'm sure somebody might know their name in the chat. It's not coming to me right now, but there's a song about it.
Okay. So, Dave, question for you. Joe needs to go take care of some work stuff, but do you want to continue, or do we just...
Yeah,
It's-
y'all
time
can
is it?
cont- y'all
It's been
can
quite a
continue
while.
going. It's up to y'all. But yeah,
It's been 2.5 hours, so
Yeah, it has.
right, probably getting about that time. You if you got one last
Yeah.
thing you want to look at, we can do that and then wrap it up.
yeah. Did
All
you
right.
have anything else, or what do you got?
Yeah, you got something you wanted to
Um,
mention before we wrap it up?
well, the last one that I had was Dina's story.
Let's do it real quick and then we'll just call it. All right.
I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
I don't
Okay.
think Joe's heard this one. This one's very... the video that I found is definitely kid focused on kids.
Oh yeah, this one definitely is.
Garfunkel and Oates is what Aunt Jer says there for the
Okay.
for the song.
Oh, Garfunkel. Okay, good. Yeah, I've heard of that. All right.
Dinah and her brothers, a story of justice and choices, inspired by Genesis 34 and 49. 5, 7, King James Version. Once upon a time, in the land of Canaan, there lived a family chosen by God Jacob and his many children. Among them was Dinah, Jacob's only daughter. She had 11 brothers, including Simeon and Levi, who were very protective of her. One day, while their family was living near the city of Shechem, Dinah went out to visit the women of the land. She wanted to make friends and see what life was like outside her family's camp. But something terrible happened. The prince of the city, also named Shechem, saw Dinah and took her without asking. He treated her wrongly, but afterward, he said he loved her and wanted to marry her. Shechem went to his father, Hamor, and said, "Please get me this girl to be my wife."
In case you were wondering, yes, they were talking about he sexually abused her.
He
Okay.
took her without permission, and then he's going to the father and saying,
But
"Let
he's
me
in
marry her."
love. He took her because he's in love with her.
Yeah.
That's the fairy tale. He's a prince, right? So it's okay.
Right. It makes that seem okay.
They sure made it sound real nice, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Like
Sure
I almost
did.
thought it was a Disney movie for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't know if the big screen is ready for that.
So Hamor and Shechem came to speak with Jacob and his sons. They offered peace and trade and even said their people could become one family with Jacob's. But Dinah's brothers were deeply hurt and angry. This was not how a man should treat their sister. Simeon and Levi, her closest brothers, could not stand the thought of someone disrespecting their family. They listened carefully as Shechem and Hamor spoke. Shechem even said he would pay anything to marry Dinah. But the brothers made a plan. They said, "We cannot give our sister to someone who is not part of our people. If all the men in your city become like us and are circumcised, then we can live together and give our sister to Shechem." Hamor.
Here's
and
the
Shechem.
deal. Here,
They
take this
went back
knife.
and convinced all the men in the city to be circumcised, saying it would bring peace and trade and make everyone rich.
Wow.
But 3 days later, when all the men were sore and weak from the procedure, Simeon and Levi took their
But so it does
Wow.
say that it was painful.
That
When
was
all the
pretty-
men were sore, and oh, poor guys are all walk around funny.
They're probably
Don't
got,
touch me!
ice
Don't touch me!
packs.
Well, I don't think they didn't have ice packs back then, right? So I mean, you're kind of like
Not a lot of ice packs in the
Yeah,
desert.
I
No,
was gonna say. Oh, man.
probably got some sand in it too. Really,
Yeah,
really
man.
fun. Yeah.
their swords. They quietly entered the city and attacked. They defeated every man, including Shechem and Hamor, and rescued their sister Dinah from Shechem's house. Afterward, the other brothers came and took everything from the city, sheep, cattle, and goods. They even took the women and children, leaving the
Oh, they even took the women and children. But the part that they don't tell you is that they only took the virgins.
Wow.
That is part of the story. Yeah, it says that they only took the virgins and and the children.
And there's also always, God always gets a cut out of these things too. So whenever any of these things are done with God's help, God basically gets a third or something like that. It says in the Bible. There's always a cut that goes to God. Just like the mafia gets their cut no matter what.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder too. Now you can sacrifice the animals and the people and everything, but how does God get the money?
Yeah, and does he need money? I mean, why does God need money? I mean,
Yeah, what
somebody's
is it?
pocketing God's money. That's
yeah, somebody is. Yeah. What does God need money for?
Yeah, there's I don't remember the verse, but there's basically that, I think it's a third of the spoils are to go to God
Yeah.
or something like that.
I've heard that one too. Yes. Yeah, I think it was a third, something like that. I don't know exactly like where they put it, like in these altars or whatever, maybe.
And don't forget, that means a third of the virgins
Yeah.
go to God.
God.
Right.
Well, how else will the people that go to heaven get their virgins, right? Like
And
they
as
need
you pointed
to-
out, AJ, they said nobody else was sacrificed or no human sacrifice. Well,
Mhm.
how does God get the virgins?
Yeah.
They had to have been sacrifices.
Exactly.
the city empty. When Jacob found out what his sons had done, he was afraid. You have made me look bad in front of the people who live in this land. Now they may come and destroy us. But Simeon and Levi said, should he treat our sister like that? We had to do something. Jacob never forgot what his sons did. Years later, when he was very old, Jacob gathered all his sons to bless them. But to Simeon and Levi, he gave a warning. He said, Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. Genesis 49:5-7, KJV. He reminded them that while protecting their sister was right, acting out in anger and violence was not God's way. God wants justice, but also mercy and wisdom. Moral of the story. It's important to stand up for what's right and protect others, but we must always seek wisdom and peace in how we act. Anger can lead to more hurt, even when we feel wronged. God teaches us to act with love and righteousness.
So basically, allow your sister to be abused and stolen. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the moral of the story.
I've
there,
never
but
heard
it's
that story
very-
before, but yeah, that's definitely a pretty odd one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and God, Yahweh's vengeful. The idea of you're not supposed to be vengeful. Yahweh's very vengeful.
I mean, I did like
I don't know where
the
they get that.
the Trojan concept of having all the men chop off their foreskins to make them weak, so they couldn't fight. I mean, that was pretty interesting. That would make a
Good strategy if you can get the enemy to mutilate themselves right before the battle. Yeah,
hell of a strategy.
Yeah.
with no ice pack.
Yeah.
No, it's like, So I tried to find Ezekiel 23, which is the one where they talk about the donkey size private parts and horse emissions in a children's version, and I couldn't. But then I found a really weird one because it was that one, but it was being read and it was labeled for children. So it was just the audio.
Hmm.
And I listened to it and it was the whole story, okay? And at the bottom it said, since children learn differently, we decided to record a children friendly audio Bible for the spiritual growth to help them visualize, immerse, and enjoy the journey. I thought that was creepy as heck.
That is pretty weird.
Like
Well,
to
I
frame it for kids when you know like the full story is what? Okay.
well they push all the time. They want like family friendly books and movies and media. From supposedly the Bible, and it's like uh, you totally have to make it as silly as these little videos, which is
Yeah.
totally unrealistic from what's in the Bible. And so
Yeah. Yeah. You have to like
you're kind of fibbing to them to say, well, that wasn't the real story. Here's the real story later. And just say, look,
but it's like this, okay?
it's not
Like
made for
first
kids.
like
But they won't
first
say that. Yeah,
they give you this one, then they give you this one, and
yeah.
then they kind of like prepare you. This one's like the intermediate level of grossness, and then they let you read the full story. But then by that time, you're already like, well, this has to be true, and it is true, and it was for good reason, and you already know like the message that they want you to think it had behind it. So
Yeah,
We
they
we
kind of
just
already put that in your head. Yeah.
yeah we just heard an apologist the other day. I don't remember which one it was, but somebody was saying that they were being read Bible verses at 2 years old, starting at 2 years old. So,
yeah,
really, I mean, again, what do you read from the Bible to a little child like that? I don't
yes,
see it from the Bible. First of all, it reads like that one video with all those big, huge words and everything, and
yeah,
really, I mean, aren't children's stories like see the dog, see the dog run, see the dog play with the ball, stuff like that. And, read a 2-year-old the Bible. I just very
yeah.
odd, very odd.
Like this one right here is the story of Job that we were just reading, and at the end, the message it gives you a message at the end. This one says, "I will praise the Lord all of the time." So, like, those are the type of
Yeah,
things that they're teaching them,
Like, don't question. Those no
Yeah,
questioning.
and
Just praise.
anybody that reads what Job went through as a righteous man, when I read it, I just feel so sorry for the guy.
yeah.
And I think he
It's
was
a terrible story.
absolutely justified in crying out, "Why me?" And if God condemned him for that, I think that's totally unjust. I think
Absolutely.
God should understand that after all that he'd been through, he had every right to ask, "Why me?"
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Like, why are you messing with me for no reason? Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah.
All right.
Yahweh's a jerk, and he's awful. He's barbaric. His book is barbaric, and again,
And you
these
shouldn't teach
stories
it
are
to your
barbaric.
kids.
Yeah, and then on top of it, it doesn't ever mention that women and children are basically property, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another thing about the Bible. And the excuse is, well, that was the times back then, but it's the 21st century now.
I think the best thing that we can do for the future generations is to not indoctrinate them with these stories
Yep.
from like if they want to read the Bible when they have the comprehension skills as adults, kind of like alcohol, do it like a 21 and over type of thing.
Who put restrictions on everything, AJ?
Right.
Who wanted labels on records, CDs, video games, everything? The Christian groups, right? You can't see this until you're an adult. Well, I challenge you right back to produce a major movie from the Bible that you can get rated less than R, probably rated X, 18 only and above, right? So then follow your own standards. If you wouldn't allow any other media to get through without having a warning or adults only on it, then that sticker should be on the Bible too.
Right, exactly.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah, that's definitely that's true. Very
Yeah,
true.
like I mean, we don't let kids see.
They should have the explicit
Yeah, like
material.
X-rated movies,
Yeah,
label.
violence,
material,
yeah, explicit material, adult nature, etc. And that rates you at least 18 plus or 17 plus, or accompanied by an adult 17 plus, some in that range. It certainly doesn't mean G or even PG, where it's basically family friendly. Never make it. Never make it. Well,
like
wasn't Noah rated R?
Yeah, like we don't go around.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not really sure.
The movie Noah, yeah. It probably
but I
was
was gonna
rated
say,
R.
like, we don't go around making pornos, you know, sanitized for children. Like, no, we just don't let them see that. So same with the Bible. Like, it's horrible. Just don't go sanitize it and make it kid friendly. Just
Noah was PG-13.
Okay.
To include violence, disturbing images, and brief suggestive content. And what's the Passion? That's the other one.
That one I'm pretty sure is rated R.
Oh, the Passion of the Christ.
The Passion of Christ.
The Christ. Rated R. Yeah, the Passion of the Christ was rated R. So there you go. Is that family friendly?
Yeah.
It's not. It wouldn't pass the same standards you want on video games, movies, probably comic books. I'm not really into the comic books, but I'm guessing they probably have stickers on them too.
No, I completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, something we hadn't thought of. Yeah.
Put
a sticker on that book. We're watching you.
We should print some stickers, and we can go to church, and like how they have the Bibles, in the pews.
I mean, we might have to do a petition on that, right?
With that tamper-proof cellophane all around it that you need a razor knife to cut through, and like with the AAA batteries. It's like, I don't know how you're supposed to open those packages.
Well, the thing is now, though, so we're talking about, it should be an age limit to learn this, but now we have them wanting to put this into the school curriculums for public schools. Like here in Texas, they just passed that. So I mean,
oh yeah, they passed that here in Texas. Yeah, they're trying to pass the 10 Commandments too. It's almost there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's coming next.
I know they've ran into that a few places where people have brought it up at board meetings. They came in with the Bible and said, "Wait a minute, right? You can't have this in here either." And then they changed the wording somehow to not include the religious material or something like that to get around to make themselves a loophole so they can still allow the Bible, but not other books that have similar language and content.
Yeah.
Good for them, bad for everybody else.
Hypocrites.
It is, bad for everybody.
Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me over.
Yeah, no,
always love talking about these wonderful childhood Bible stories. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I really appreciate it.
I promise next time I'll keep it a little bit lighter.
Okay.
We'll just I guess look at the pictures. We'll just look at the pictures.
There we go.
That should do it. If we don't look at the words, then it's good, right? It's a good book. It's a good picture book.
We can sanitize it, right?
If you start thinking bad things by seeing the picture, that's you. That's because the devil's in you.
It's
the magic zoo boat.
The magic zoo boat. I like that, man. I'm gonna have to start using that term. The magic.
Please do. It really irritates the creationists.
No, it's really been great, Dave. I really enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully we can have you back on the show. And next time, I won't be an hour late next time. I promise.
Yeah, no problem. Things happen. I do the show every Saturday, and we have like usual folks, but sometimes ones can't make it. They're going to be late. Whatever. It's all good. I mean, it's a YouTube show, and you got things to do, and we accommodate. And like I said, I was here filling in, so no worries.
There we go. There we go.
I got you covered, man. I got you covered.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
had
Dave.
good conversation. Yeah, maybe next time we'll join you on your channel.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Chat about stuff.
I like doing reciprocal things, so yeah, definitely we'll find something to talk about, and we'll have you over at the desk too.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I look forward
I
to that.
put the
then.
link there. I will add it to the description when we finish here. To my YouTube video that
You'll find us every Saturday doing Saturday Night at the Atheists. And during the week, I do the Night Watch, where I take a look at shorts, and we kind of look at some really terrible videos and just have a few laughs, and we don't take it very seriously at all.
Yeah, check
Cool,
it out.
cool. Yeah,
The one last time was pretty funny. And
serious debunking you're not going to find because these videos just aren't worth the effort
to try.
They're that bad.
The time or the effort to put into it. Yeah.
I love the terrible videos. That's what I'm looking for. And if you come across a really terrible video, send it my way.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out in the chat with us. And
thanks, everybody.
You can find Dave at Captive Desk, and as well as he said on Answers in Atheism, right? And Mike
and I stream together often over at Answers in Atheism, and he has a great channel over there with a lot of content. Subscribe over there, and if you need something to binge on, Mike's got like 1,000 videos you can binge on over there.
Just to go through. Okay, all right.
That sounds fun.
I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Yeah, I did subscribe last night, and I saw a lot of videos. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us with this very fun, disturbing Bible stories for children. Again, reminder: it says it's for children, but it's not for children. Don't expose your children to this filth. Okay.
The filth.
Read them a nice story about Spot chasing the ball. It'll do them a lot more good in the world.
Like there are very child-friendly stories that have similar messaging. Okay, like the ugly duckling. The little the witch where they eat from the candy house, right? Hansel and Gretel. There you go. So like there are other stories out there with the same messaging, minus the perversion. All right.
Aesop's Fables is one of my favorites. It teaches you all the same moral lessons without all the wrath and the bloodbaths and everything. So yeah, that's another. And there's versions for kids and adults of Aesop's Fables. So that's a good option.
Right. Perfect. All right, guys. Stay cool. Like the stream, subscribe to everybody's channels, and support the atheist community.
That thing's down below there.
The thinkers.
The like and the subscribe and the share and all that. And love everybody. Be good to each other out there.
Yeah.
Take
Just
care.
put the fingers out. Bye.